Book 16, Starmist C, Chapter 13, Unbindable. Within the vast, boundless Starmist Sea, within that gravitational sphere that extended 200 meters around Linley in every direction, Gunmonden's 1,000 or so doppelgangers all blew apart. Bang bang bang, it was as though the world itself was about to collapse, as wild energy waves lashed out in every direction. Gunmonden was very nearly at the 7-star fiend level of power. With such an enormous number of doppelgangers simultaneously exploding within this globe, ordinary gods at least would definitely not be able to withstand it. Not good. Oliver's face changed. That Bates immediately emanated a black energy aura, instantly covering Olivier, Bibi, and Delia behind it. Bang. The powerful explosion came crashing over, causing the black aura over their bodies to flicker and shake. Bates, I'm fine. Bibi said disdainfully. At the same time, Bibi and the others stared at the center of the explosion, where Linley's blurry figure could be seen. Linley was currently turning to stare at them, clearly worried about the shockwaves from the explosion striking them. This is the moment. Gunmonden's original body immediately seized the opportunity, frantically resisting the gravitational pull and striving to fly away at high speed. He wanted to flee out from the gravitational space, and after flying outside of it, given his speed, he would easily be able to throw off Linley. Quick, quick. Gunmonden frantically increased his speed, while that gravity clutched at him like countless ropes that were tightly entangling him. Who the hell is this Linley? His gravity control is actually at such a level, and the scaled armor on his body is so powerful. Gunmonden was furious. Linley's gravitational space and powerful body defense just so happened to perfectly counter him. But although he was furious, Gunmonden still seized the moment when Linley was distracted to flee. Boss, we're fine, but don't let that Gunmonden escape. Bibi hurriedly used his divine sense to speak to Linley frantically. Right, Gunmonden. I can't let him escape. Linley was startled awake. He immediately turned to look at Gunmonden, who currently had already reached the borders of the gravitational space. Before Linley had a chance to react, Gunmonden leapt out from the borders of that gravitational sphere. As soon as he left that gravitational space, he was like a bird who had been given the skies. Gunmonden was incomparably excited and rejoiced. Haha, I finally escaped. Linley stared at Gunmonden. His lips cracked into a smile, while at the same time, he gently chanted, "Grow." The 200-meter sphere of gravitational space suddenly expanded once more, increasing to a sphere of gravity that was 400 meters. It must be understood that previously, when creating his Blackstone prison, Linley was already capable of easily reaching 300 meters. The 200-meter diameter was far from being Linley's limit. I finally escaped that damn place. That Linley is actually such a monster. I'd best go back for now. Just as Gunmonden was rejoicing, very suddenly, that terrifying gravitational force once more covered his entire body, with those invisible forces once more entangling him tightly. Sensing this force, Gunmonden's face instantly turned white, without a hint of blood. What? Gunmonden was stupefied. He was very fast, but under that gravitational pull. He wasn't even at a tenth of his normal speed. How could he possibly escape Linley's pursuit? Last time, he had used the exploding doppelgangers to distract Linley, but this time, Linley wouldn't be distracted again. Can it be that I am going to die today? Gunmonden turned to look, but all he saw was Linley's dark golden eyes. Those two dark golden eyes were currently drawing nearer to him. Within the gravitational space, Linley's speed was far greater than his. Although this took time to describe, in reality, less than a second had passed since Linley had expanded his gravitational space. You won't be able to flee. Linley's voice rang out in Gunmonden's mind, echoing. Whoosh. Linley's right fist struck out like an aquatic dragon leaving the seas, seeming to carry a force that was mighty enough to shatter the earth itself. It howled as it tore through the air, and wherever his fist passed, even the space of the infernal realm itself began to shudder, creating spatial cracks. Linley's powerful muscles and body had bestowed upon him incomparably vast strength. If he were to use a long-distance attack based on the laws, this massive physical strength wouldn't be able to be used, but once he entered close combat, Linley's mighty body, having been transformed by the golden drop of blood and Sovereign's might, was capable of releasing astonishing might. This was his most powerful punch, one which fused the essence of the earth and the throbbing pulse of the world and connected it with his mighty physical strength. Gunmondan felt his vision blur as a draconic scale-covered fist suddenly swung at him. Gunmondan immediately launched a backhand blow with his sword. The sword seemed to move slowly but was actually extremely fast. Before the fist arrived, the green serpentine sword was already there to block. Bang! Linley's fist collided viciously against the serpentine divine artifact sword. Rumble, the serpentine sword actually was smashed so hard that it bent. That fist, carrying boundless force, was knocked slightly off target by Gunmondan's sword, but it still smashed hard against Gunmondan's shoulder. With a crunch sound, Gunmondan's shoulder blade shattered and he was knocked flying backwards by the blow. What terrifying brute strength! Gunmondan's face changed dramatically. If he were to land a blow on my head, I would die without question. It was that close. Even a divine artifact sword had been bent. This force was simply monstrously powerful. However, after having been lucky enough to dodge that, Gunmondan let out a sigh of relief, but then his face changed greatly, because a flashing, azure golden streak of light was already moving towards him like a blurred whip. No, it wasn't a blurred whip. It was Linley's draconic tail, which had reached an extreme level of speed. As it turned out, when Linley had smashed out with his right fist, he had also sent his steel-like draconic tail slashing through the air towards Gunmondan's head. Gunmondan was so terrified that the look on his face completely changed. The long sword in his hand slashed out in a blur, while at the same time, a pleasant flute sound rang out. This strange flute sound caused Linley to unconsciously pause. Crackle, where the sword shadow passed by, space split apart. Clang! The serpentine longsword smashed hard against the draconic tail, and sparks flew everywhere. 3 draconic scales on the serpentine tail were shattered. While the strike of the draconic tail couldn't help but miss its mark. Alas, the power of this blow from the draconic tail was simply too great. Even though it was slightly off target, it was only just a bit lower. Whap! The draconic tail smashed viciously against Gunmondan's chest like a chopping blade, and as it passed through his neck, it actually separated Gunmondan's head from the rest of his body. Gunmondan's head immediately flew away, his eyes filled with astonishment. With a return whipping blow from that azure golden draconic tail, yet another strike was landed on the headless body. Bang! The headless body immediately blew apart. You won't be able to flee. Linley chased after Gunmondan's head. With Linley at the center, a terrifying gravitational force pulled out. Every living creature within that gravitational sphere was drawn towards Linley. Gunmondan's head was affected by the gravity as well. Crackle, starting from Gunmondan's head, a neck, shoulder, and chest were quickly growing out. The power of a head by itself to fight back was simply too weak. Naturally, he wouldn't be able to resist the gravity, and thus he drew near Linley. You won't have enough time. Linley's right leg just gently kicked out, carrying a massive force capable of shattering a mountain range as it chopped down towards the head like a chopping knife. Linley's right leg seemed to carry a hint of a blade shadow as it gently slashed past the only half-grown upper body. No. A furious, unwilling scream. You cannot kill me. If you kill me, the Lord Commander will definitely kill you. As Linley's leg blade chopped down towards Gunmondan's head, Gunmondan sent his final divine sense message. Unfortunately, Linley didn't hesitate at all. Slash. The head was chopped down by Linley's leg, and it blew apart from the blow. Ganmondan was dead. With a flip of his hand, Linley retrieved that green divine artifact longsword and interspatial ring, taking them into his hand. At this time, Delia, Bibi, and the others excitedly flew over as well. Linley naturally caused everyone to be overjoyed by his being able to kill Ganmondan. Haha, boss, that Ganmondan was so boastful, but in the end, he still died. Bibi laughed loudly. Boss, let me take a look and see how much wealth his interspatial ring had within. You are still thinking about such things. Linley smirked as he laughed. The amount of wealth Bibi had was comparable to the total wealth of some of the ancient clans of the infernal realm. This Ganmondan, although powerful, wasn't a 7-star fiend. Most likely, he only had a few trillion. Compared to Bibi's fortune, it was like a hair on the body of 9 oxen. I like counting money. Bibi felt itchy in his heart. Linley, just give the interspatial ring to Bibi. The nearby Delia laughed. If you don't give it to him, he won't give up. Linley laughed, then tossed the interspatial ring to Bibi. Bibi chortled, then immediately began to investigate the contents of the interspatial ring. The big bearded Bates just looked at Linley. He knew that Linley was powerful, but even Ganmondan had died in such a manner. This caused him to be surprised. He couldn't help but sigh, Mr. Linley, even Ganmondan was in such dire straits in front of you. This truly is admirable. Linley just shook his head and laughed, looking at the green serpentine longsword. In his heart, he said to himself. Ganmondan really was unlucky to have encountered me. It wasn't that Ganmondan wasn't strong enough, nor was it that Linley was too strong. It was. Linley was a perfect counter to Ganmondan. Ganmondan specialized in speed and in material attacks. In terms of speed, Linley's unique gravitational space would cause any expert, no matter how fast, to feel as though he were moving through mud once trapped within. Any expert's speed would be much slower. As for material attacks, to his misfortune, Linley's powerful body was so strong, only an exceedingly few number of races of the infernal realm could compare to him. Ganmondan's most powerful sword attack was only able to break apart 2 or 3 draconic scales, unable to influence Linley at all. If I were to encounter a 6-star fiend who specializes in soul attacks, I would be in bad shape. Linley said to himself. Ultimate experts who were skilled in soul attacks were generally capable of reaching the level of making their soul attacks conscious. For example, the volcano titan, Fusro. Even the God's Lair arrows for sale in the Redbud Castle contained a mind of its own. These were all from experts who were quite skilled in matters of the soul. Linley was worried most about this type of expert. Those who specialized in material attacks, however, were perfectly countered by Linley. Ah, boss. There's no way to bind this interspatial ring by blood. Linley turned and saw that Bibi was looking sourly at the interspatial ring in his hand. The nearby Delia was frowning as well. This interspatial ring has an owner. Can it be that Ganmondan has another surviving divine clone? In the infernal realm, some experts would separate their divine clones into different areas. But of course, this was only the minority. After all, there were strong divine clones and weak ones. Weak divine clones had to be put in a safe location. But where in the infernal realm was truly safe? The weak didn't have the money to buy dwellings within cities, while those experts who roamed all over the place didn't want to let their clones be separated. In the depths of the sea, within that nameless gorge and the estate within, Ganmondan, dressed in a deep green robe, was shaking, his green glowing eyes staring in front of himself. My divine wind clone, destroyed. Ganmondan ground his teeth, his entire body trembling. Linley, of the 4 Divine Beasts clan? I don't give a damn who you are. I, Ganmondan, will definitely make you regret it. Ganmondan now only had his divine water cloner remaining. In terms of power, Ganmondan's strongest clone was his divine wind clone. Even his divine wind clone had proved incapable of killing Linley. How, then, would he kill him? My only choice is to go beg the Lord Commander. Gunmontan's eyes flashed with the light of hatred, then he transformed into a ray of green light and immediately flew out of the hall. In the waters above the Starmist Sea, Linley's group was staring at that green serpentine longsword and that interspatial ring. BB muttered, that fellow actually hit a divine clone. In the past, very few of the many gods that I've met have done such a thing. So troublesome. We can't even bind his interspatial ring. If we can't bind it with blood, then we should destroy it. Linley laughed calmly. If we leave it untouched, Gunmontan would know where we are located. Right at this moment. Linley, those 7 are coming. Delia said. Linley turned to look. Indeed, Aix, Tam, Boff, and the rest of the 7 gods were flying over. Aix, in particular, had an apologetic smile on his face. The 7 of them had watched this battle just now. Only now did they realize that the hidden expert was Linley. They actually have face to come back. Humph. BB let out a low snort. Lord Linley. The first to fly over was Aix, and he immediately called out in a very friendly voice. Book 16, Starmist Sea, Chapter 14, Drifting for 20 years. Oh ho, so it's you guys. What are you doing here? I thought the 7 of you left already. How come you came back? BB intentionally cocked his head to one side, a mystified look on his face. Immediately, Aix and the other 7 felt rather embarrassed. Although in that sort of situation, it was understandable that they had to consider their own safety. If they had truly just left, that was one thing. But now that they had come back, it was rather awkward. In the Starmist Sea, however, where bandits abounded everywhere, given their strength as gods, how could they safely reach the blood-rich continent? Only by relying on the protection of Linley and Bates would they be able to reach their destination. Although relying on Linley's group to help out was rather awkward, given the other choice was losing their lives, they had to do it. Aix chuckled, then hurriedly said, BB, we. Oh, I know. BB suddenly had a look of insight appearing on his face. Aix, originally, you were borrowing Bates' metallic life form. Now that Bates' metallic life form was destroyed by that Gunmontan, you have now come back to compensate him for the metallic life form, right? Metallic life form. Aix was flabbergasted. Bates' eyes lit up. Only now did he remember his metallic life form, and he immediately laughed. Right. I agreed to your request to use my metallic life form and allow everyone to ride it. Now, it's destroyed. Aix, you have to compensate me. My metallic life form was a high-level one, worth 18 million inkstones. 18 million. Aix stared. What, are you not going to pay up? The face of the big-bearded Bates immediately hardened, as though he were about to attack Aix. Aix hurriedly said, Lord Bates, don't worry, I'll compensate you, I'll definitely compensate you, all right. That's more like it. The big-bearded Bates laughed delightedly. His metallic life form was actually only worth around 8 million inkstones. Now that it had been destroyed, he actually made a profit of 10 million inkstones. Aix felt resignation in his heart. Who the hell had he pissed off, for all these disasters to happen on this trip through the Starmist Sea? If this happens a few more times, this entire business trip will all but have been for nothing. Aix sighed helplessly. Actually, the value of the products which Aix had brought was quite high. If he could bring it to the blood-rich continent, he would indeed make quite a bit of money. Unfortunately, the price of metallic life forms was high as well. Will you be coming with us? A voice rang out. Aix and the other 7 deities turned to look. The speaker was Linley. The big-bearded Bates glanced at him, then began to chortle. Aix, if you want to travel alongside us, you need to first see if Linley agrees or not. I'm not the decision maker here. It's up to Linley. Aix and the rest of the 7 all knew that the most powerful person in this group was Linley. Lord Linley, Aix hurriedly laughed. If you want to travel along with us, it's fine. Linley laughed calmly as he spoke. When these words came out, Aix and the others all let out sighs of relief. Linley, seeing the situation, couldn't help but laugh. However, I have to warn you that although I killed Gunmontan, he still has another divine clone left. More importantly, there is a terrifying figure behind him, and that ultimate expert will most likely come looking for me. Ultimate expert. Aix and the rest of the 7 couldn't help but look at each other. The nearby BB, wanting to frighten them, added, that Gunmontan was nothing more than a subordinate of that expert. If you just think about it, you can probably come to the conclusion, that the expert should be on the same level as an Azura. Azura. Aix, Tam, Wilburn, and the others felt their hearts shake. To a god, the Azuras were invincible figures that were far above them. The green-haired man, Tam, hurriedly said awkwardly, Lord Linley is so powerful that he should be able to deal with that expert, right? Aix and the others immediately looked at Linley. I don't have any confidence at all of being able to do so. Linley refuted. Everyone, make your decisions. Aix and the other 7 looked at each other. We'll still follow you, Lord Linley. The 7, in the end, made their decision. If the 7 were to roam the Starmist Sea by relying on their own power, there was no way they would be able to safely arrive at the Blood Ridge continent. By following Linley, they would be much safer. Linley, hearing this, couldn't help but laugh. If I can protect you, I will. If I'm not able to, then you'll have to rely on yourselves. Linley laughed calmly. All right, let's head out. Linley waved his hand, and a metallic life form appeared on the surface of the Starmist Sea. Linley knew very well that Aix no longer had any metallic life forms. Since they knew that behind Gunmontan there was this Lord Commander, Linley's group naturally devised a method to make it so that they wouldn't be found. First, Linley destroyed the interspatial ring and even that divine artifact, then took a roundabout route as they advanced towards the Blood Ridge continent. The Starmist Sea was vast and boundless. Even the most powerful of experts would find it very hard to find someone within the Starmist Sea. At first, Linley's group had been quite worried, but after advancing for over a year without encountering any danger, everyone relaxed. The endless Starmist Sea. During their quiet voyage, 20 years quickly passed after their encounter with Gunmontan. Rumble, the waves of the sea rolled on. The metallic life form broke through the waves, with Linley seated outside at the head of the ship, staring at the waves. 20 years. Linley gripped the wine bottle, casually taking 2 gulps. In the infernal realm, time really does go by fast. Just traversing the Starmist Sea alone takes decades. By now, we haven't even covered half the distance. During the past 20 years, at first, Linley was worried about encountering that Lord Commander. But as time went on, Linley relaxed. After traveling for 20 years, most likely it would be extremely difficult for that commander to locate them. After all, even Paragon-level high gods wouldn't have a significantly greater divine sense than normal high gods. How then could they find Linley? Boss. BB suddenly scurried out from the cabin of the ship, his face filled with excitement. Boss, in the cabin, they were discussing an extremely famous island that we are about to reach. It seems it is called Maluto Island. During this journey, Linley's group had halted at a few cities before as well. The vast Starmist Sea had many islands within it, and they were divided amongst 10 prefectures as well. Every single prefecture had 10 cities, which were all built upon the various islands. The islands of the Starmist Sea generally had a circumference of 10,000 kilometers, with the larger ones perhaps even 1,000,000 kilometers, far larger than Linley's homeland of the Yulon continent. This was more than enough land to build a city. Malugo Island. Linley couldn't help but be surprised. They say that Malugo Island is very developed and flourishing with trade. There's even some sort of arena on Malugo Island as well, I hear. BB was rather confused about this as well. Linley, however, remembered that in that book which described the geography of the infernal realm, there was a rather weighty description of the Malugo Island. The Malugo Island was a large island that was hundreds of kilometers in circumference, and was within the silver blue prefecture of the Starmist Sea. Malugo Island was an extremely bustling place with a very large amount of people passing through it. Each day, many merchants and warriors would gather there. Its degree of activity wasn't one whit lower than the 10 major cities of the silver blue prefecture. This was a very puzzling thing, actually. An island that was comparable to the 10 cities of silver blue prefecture? Hey, Linley, what are you chatting about? The big bearded Bates walked to the front of the ship as well. Just chatting about Malugo Island. Linley laughed calmly. Malugo Island. The big bearded Bates sighed. This is a very special place. It isn't under the protection of the Starmist army, nor does it have the protection of any prefectural soldiers, but it is as bustling as any of the large cities. Within the island, there is an independent castle which allows merchants to engage in trade. The Starmist army was comparable to the Red Bud army, it was the army of the Starmist Sea. Malugo Island has an extremely powerful army within it which protects the rules of Malugo Island. Bates sighed in praise. The soldiers of this army are all high gods and are very outstanding. After all these years, Malugo Island has never decayed. Linley couldn't help but feel puzzled. Each prefecture only had 10 cities. But this Malugo Island was actually able to entice so many merchants to enter it, and was able to be maintained for so many years. This was indeed quite astonishing. Malugo Island has 2 famous places within it. One is the Free Castle, while the other is the arena. Within the Free Castle, no battles are permitted whatsoever. If any fighting is discovered, the soldiers of the Malugo Island will definitely show no mercy at all. Within the arena, the onlookers aren't permitted to battle each other. Anyone who violates this will also be surrounded and killed by the army. Bates' eyes were filled with amazement and excitement. Malugo Island is too powerful. Up till now, no one has dared to challenge it. So many merchants trade there? Can it be that no one dares to steal there? BB snorted. I refuse to believe it. Ordinary people don't dare rob the merchants, but can it be that the prefectural soldiers will also be afraid to? For example, the Starmist army. The Starmist army was the army of the sovereigns. Could it be that it wouldn't come to deal with Malugo Island? I'm not sure about that. Bates shook his head. Malugo Island has already existed for countless hundreds of millions of years. There definitely has to be a special reason for all this. Linley had a general idea of some information regarding Malugo Island. However, it was still just a general idea. From this, though, Linley was able to postulate that someone capable of forming an army composed of high gods, as well as create a trading location outside of the city, had to be an utterly, monstrously powerful figure. Behind Malugo Island there is definitely an astonishingly powerful force. Linley said to himself. Hey, just now, I heard you say that in 3 days, we'll be at Malugo Island. BB suddenly asked. The big bearded Bates nodded and laughed, right. 3 more days. Malugo Island is extremely interesting and fascinating, especially the arena, and especially the High God arena. The battles there even include some extremely powerful experts. It is so incredible. Linley couldn't help but feel a hint of anticipation in his heart as well. Malugo Island. An independent island within the Starmist Sea. It had no prefectural soldiers of the Starmist army, and yet it was one of the most bustling places here. 3 days later. There's so much activity. Seeing the enormous island from afar, Linley's group was shocked. Upon seeing Malugo Island's island entrance, they actually saw countless, densely clustered metallic life forms heading in that direction. At every moment in time, there are a large number of metallic life forms arriving. Linley couldn't help but sigh in amazement. Each day, how many people must be arriving here at Malugo Island? It really is hard to fathom. The amount of activity here at Malugo Island really is no lower than any other island. On this trip, Linley had seen quite a few cities. Their degree of activity was roughly the same as this Malugo Island. "Boss, let's go. Let's go take a look at this Malugo Island." Once the metallic life form drew near and halted at the entrance location, BB immediately and excitedly was the first to charge out. There was no need to pay an entrance fee to enter Malugo Island. Linley's group thus stepped down and entered this legendary Malugo Island. Book 16, Starmist C, Chapter 15, Malugo Island. Malugo Island was a verdant island. Ancient trees could be seen everywhere, and the fresh air uplifted the spirits of Linley and the others. From afar, they could see the varied buildings, some sumptuous restaurants, and other edifices. The people on the streets were in an endless stream as well. At present, some members of bizarre races walked past Linley's group. Some were sharp-eared elfin creatures with faintly green skin, while others were enormous whale warriors whose faces had a rather scaly look. Although upon becoming a deity, one could transform into a human, some bizarre races had different aesthetic standards compared to humans. Even in human form, they would maintain some of the things they felt proudest about. For example, the tail of a fox man, or the fish scales of an oceanic creature. Linley's group was no longer puzzled by these things. Turning, he laughed as he looked at the nearby Delia and the others. "We've been on the sea for quite a while. Let's first go to a restaurant, and then to the arena and the free castle later." Linley had been curious long ago regarding the legendary arena. In this place, he would be able to see some of the techniques of real experts. How could he give up a chance like this? "We'll do as you say, Lord Linley." Aix chuckled as he spoke. Linley, hearing these words, understand that ever since his battle with Gunmondin, he had already become the acknowledged leader of this squad. This was how things worked in the infernal realm. Experts were revered. "Hey, boss, look. That squad dressed in blood-red armor. All of them are high gods." BB immediately pointed into the distance. Linley and the others immediately turned to look. Indeed, on the streaming, crowded streets, there were 3 men dressed in blood-red armor, which had some unique patterns atop them. Linley wasn't able to tell what sort of hidden meaning the patterns represented. As the 3 warriors walked atop the streets, everyone else on the streets intentionally maintained their distance, clearly not daring to offend them. The big bearded Bates said hurriedly, "Linley, that's the private army for protecting Malugo Island. No matter what, don't offend them. All of them are high gods, and they are extremely many in number. Over these countless years, nobody has ever dared to cause trouble at Malugo Island." "Understood." Linley laughed calmly. This private army of an island was actually vastly more elite than the Starmist army or the prefectural armies. In addition, Malugo Island had been bustling for countless years now. Linley couldn't help but feel astonished by the person behind Malugo Island. "Hey." The nearby Delia frowned, her eyebrows knitting. "Bates, I remembered that you said before that Malugo Island is divided into the West Island and East Island regions. In the East Island, it seems only the arena and the free castle are restricted. In the other areas, it is fine if battle occurs, so there shouldn't be any members of the island patrol, right?" Linley's group, prior to coming to Malugo Island, had been warned about the rules of Malugo Island by Bates, who was familiar with them. Only the arena and the free castle of Malugo Island were safe grounds. "Those aren't patrols. Most likely, those 3 warriors are on break." The big bearded Bates laughed as he spoke. "Also, when Malugo Island warriors are on patrol, each squad has 10 people, not 3. While walking and chatting, Linley's group headed deeper into Maluto Island. Maluto Island was simply too vast, with a circumference of hundreds of thousands of kilometers, which was multiple times larger than Linley's homeland of the Yulon continent. Fortunately, Linley's group was capable of moving at a speed that far exceeded mortals, and so to them, this sort of scope wasn't that much. This restaurant isn't bad. I ate here last time. The big bearded Bates pointed at an ancient, classy-looking building in front of them. All right. I'll trust your judgment. BB chortled and was the first to rush into the restaurant. Linley's group naturally began to laugh while following him. However, as they walked into the restaurant, Linley was stunned. By the side of the door, there was an explanation notice. For those who eat in my restaurant. If they engage in battle, they must pay a fee of 10,000 inkstones. If a chair is broken, 100 inkstones must be paid. If a table is broken. What's this all about? Linley had never seen this outside of a restaurant before. Olivier, curious, also read through the rules. How greedy. The chairs and tables are probably worth not even a single inkstone, but they actually want to charge so much. Also, any overturned food needs to be paid at 10 times the price. Aches laughed. This is a unique aspect of Maluto Island. After all, in normal cities, battles are strictly forbidden. But in Maluto Island, aside from those two areas, the other areas all permit battle and killing. Or, at least, the patrol soldiers of Maluto Island won't interfere. But these many restaurants and hotels and other service areas, which have formed into a huge alliance, will interfere. The restaurants, hotels, and other service locations had formed an alliance. Linley was somewhat astonished. They won't go too hard on you, but if a battle occurs, then you absolutely must pay enough money. If you don't pay up, they'll attack. Aches sighed in praise. If I were a store owner, I'd hope for people to engage in battle, and then I would be able to collect money afterwards. Special places had special rules. How intriguing. Linley let out a few words of praise, and then headed into the restaurant. The restaurant was very large, and there were quite a few customers present. Linley's group headed up to the second floor, dividing into two tables. Linley's table was one seated near a window. Naturally, the fees were covered by Aches. The silverfish slices are so tender. They melt as soon as they enter the mouth. BB sighed in amazement, hurriedly using his spoon to scoop up yet another piece of fish, delivering it to his mouth while calling out loudly, "Delicious, delicious." This BB, Linley and Delia were enjoying this rare chance to eat delicacies as well. Did you misspeak? How is that possible? Of course I didn't misspeak. This is absolutely correct. On the sea here from Blue Maple City of the Redbud continent, every single large-scale bandit force was completely destroyed. Those bandit forces were completely dispersed. Hearing this, Linley was shocked. All of the powerful bandit forces from Blue Maple City to here had been destroyed. Who could be so powerful? Linley turned to look, and saw two men drinking wine and chatting amongst themselves. One of them, a man with long golden hair, was speaking with assurance and composure. You might laugh at me for saying this, but a good friend of mine became a bandit. He personally witnessed a black-haired man wipe out his orchid coral island. The 11 high gods on the island, the leader included, all died. That black-haired man only used a single blade attack. My friend and the other ordinary bandits immediately fled in every direction. Most likely, that expert couldn't be bothered to chase down and kill ordinary gods. The discussion between these two was overheard by quite a few people nearby, and these people all began to discuss the matter amongst themselves as well. Clearly, the news of many powerful bandit forces being destroyed was no longer a secret. This is true. Roughly a month ago, it seems as though one of the high gods of Blue Shark Island's bandit forces escaped. All the others died. Linley's group, hearing these conversations, couldn't help but sigh in amazement. Destroyed so many bandit forces, all by himself. Bibi sighed, somewhat surprised. Olivier frowned. Black-haired man? Everyone, do you still remember that man who resisted those thunderbolts back then that we ran into? Linley's mind immediately drifted back to the scene of the Foxia storm, and how that man who carried a warblade on his back resisted the lightning bolts. That man had a head of black hair. If it was him, he probably really did have the power to destroy all those powerful bandits. Linley said to himself. At the same time, Linley also thought of how when they had encountered a small group of ordinary bandits, that black-haired man had immediately attacked and killed them. Clearly, the black-haired man held a deep hatred for bandits. Linley's group chatted while eating. Linley, these dishes are excellent. Have a taste. Delia said. Linley couldn't help but to turn and smile at her. But right at this moment, bang! A wild, explosive collision sound rang out on the second floor of the restaurant. Immediately, the other customers on the second floor were startled. Linley turned to look, and noticed that two people were fighting each other, moving as fast as lightning. Clang! Divine artifacts clashed, and then only blurred legs which gave off a fiery glow could be seen, smashing viciously into the chest of the other black-robed man, who was immediately sent flying. Swoosh! The black-robed man was kicked so viciously that he flew as fast as lightning towards the direction Linley's group was in. The man was about to crash into and ruin Linley's table of dishes. Linley couldn't help but frown, and divine earth power began to gather on his body. He actually really is trying to kill me. The black-robed man who was kicked flying was actually overjoyed in his heart. He was planning to seize the opportunity to flee and fly out from the window near Linley's group, but as he came falling down towards Linley's group, a strange repulsive force activated upon the black-robed man's body. The repulsive force was simply too strong. The black-robed man, suffering this invisible repulsive force, was actually sent flying back the opposite way, accelerating at high speed towards the fiery red figure. Slash! A fiery red blade shadow chopped down, and actually easily sliced through the black-robed man's head. The black-robed man stared disbelievingly, and then his head blew apart. The impact of the sudden repulsive gravity being applied to the black-robed man had caused him to be in a state of astonishment, and so he had died to a single blow. Haha, after so many years, I finally killed you, you bastard. The fiery light surrounding the red-robed man's body vanished. His face was filled with excitement, while at the same time, he stretched out with his hand to collect the interspatial ring and the divine artifact. At this moment, one of the waiters in the restaurant walked over and said casually, "You should know the rules. All the expenses, combined, total 32,100 inkstones. At Malugo Island, there were very few people who dared to offend their alliance. Thus, there was no need for threats. A waiter coming over with the bill was enough." The red-robed figure very straightforwardly withdrew 30,000 or so inkstones, and then left, heading towards Linley's group. Bowing slightly, he said, "Thank you for your assistance. Otherwise, who knows how long it would have been before I would have been able to avenge my enmity. You can leave now. Don't bother us." Bibi, still chewing on delicacies, just frowned. The red-robed man wasn't angry. He immediately left. It really is necessary to be careful at Malugo Island. Battles can occur at any point in time. Linley, after having seen this, warned himself. His plan was to next go to the Free Castle to buy some things. It seemed that he needed to be careful. After all, upon revealing his fortune, it was possible that others would lust after it. After dining, Linley's group left the restaurant, then headed straight for the famous arena of Malugo Island. The arena was extremely large, taking up over 100 kilometers. The spectators of the arena weren't permitted to battle each other. If they were discovered to be engaging in battle, they would suffer the assaults of the patrol soldiers of Maluto Island, who would show no mercy at all. Anyone who wished to watch the battles would have to pay a fee of 100 inkstones. The fee really is quite high. The arena supposedly has millions of seats. If all the seats were filled, just based on this alone, their daily income would be in excess of 100 million inkstones. Linley sighed in amazement. 100 million inkstones a day, how much is that in 10,000 years? This was indeed a vast sum. However, only someone with sufficient strength was capable of maintaining it. Just by looking at the many island guards with blood-red armor, one would understand how powerful the force here was. While passing through the staircases and entering the walkways, Linley's group would often see roving patrols of the island guards. All of them are high gods. I've seen over 1,000 by now. Who knows how many island guards there are in total? Linley was secretly shocked. As Linley's group of experts ran towards the viewing platforms of the arena, they didn't know that in a different part of the corridors of the arena, there were some familiar faces. "Captain, our patrol for today is over. Let's first go out and have some fun. Patrolling bores me to death." 10 island guards, dressed in the same blood-red armor, were walking together. They were chatting amongst themselves. "Go out for fun? Today, we have some things to do when we get back. Next time." A calm voice rang out. "Oh." The 9 others couldn't help but feel resigned. Only, they didn't dare disobey the orders of their captain. They knew exactly how formidable and how powerful their captain was. He was a person who, in the High God Arena, had won 100 battles in a row. To win 100 consecutive battles in the arena was a tremendous glory. "Caesar, that kid, alas." The captain let out a long sigh. If Linley was present, he would definitely recognize this captain dressed in the blood-red armor. Amazingly, he was an expert of the Yulan continent, Tarasi. Only, the current Tarasi had already become a high god. Book 16, Starmist C, Chapter 16, Familiar Face. The arena was divided into 3 levels. The High God Arena, the God Arena, and the Demigod Arena. There was only a single High God Arena, 3 God Arenas, and just 3 Demigod Arenas as well. "Boss, which level should we visit first?" BB hurriedly asked. "The High God battles should be the most exciting. Naturally, we'll go there." Linley laughed. The others also were rather more interested in the High God battles. And so all of them followed the directions on the walkway and headed directly towards the High God Arena. Moments later, Linley's group arrived at the vast arena. The High God Arena. The central dueling area was a round, empty expanse of land that was 5 kilometers in diameter. Around it was an extremely dense cluster of spectator seats. At a glance, there were nearly 1,000,000 seats. The High God Arena is a large one. The other 2 arenas aren't nearly as large. The big bearded Bates said. Linley's group headed through the corridors to find some empty seats, then sat down. Deity-level combatants were able to see to a very great distance. Thus, everyone was able to see clearly across multiple kilometers to view the 2 men battling in the central dueling area. Currently, in mid-air, 2 figures were hovering while staring at each other. One was a muscular, one-horned man. The other was a devilish, bewitching red-haired woman. What attracted Linley's attention wasn't these 2 people who were preparing for combat, it was the edges of the central area. In front of the viewing platforms was one blood-red armored warrior after another. At the edges of the circular viewing platforms, every few meters, there was an island guard's warrior. There are actually over 1,000 island guards here. Linley inspected them carefully. These people alone represented a force of 1,000 high gods. In addition, these were just the ones who were standing at the edges. It must be understood that other areas, such as the roving patrols going through the corridors, had quite a few island guards as well. The number of island guards present at this arena was simply astonishing. Wow. There's quite a few island guards. BB sighed in amazement. Aches laughed. This is the High God Arena. They are here to prevent the shock waves from the battle from harming the viewers. Thus, they arranged for so many island guards present. The number of island guards at the God Arena are far fewer, while the Demigod Arena has virtually no island guards present. How much damage could shockwaves from a demigod level fight cause? The big bearded Bates chuckled as well. While chatting, Linley's group also carefully watched the battle going on in the center of the arena. Two figures, transformed into blurs, were currently battling as fast as lightning. In mid-air, multiple rays of light flashed, while Linley's group continued to watch carefully. Rumble. The devilish red-haired beauty actually brandished forth a red staff, striking down like lightning towards the horned man. Ah! A desolate scream could be heard, and the horned man was sent smashing away. And then, with a queer boom, his body exploded. Clorinda, second victory. A voice rang out. The devilish red-haired beauty flew directly down towards the corridors below the arena. Too weak. Watching this battle, Linley secretly shook his head. Just by using a slight amount of the rather unique explosion profound mystery of the elemental laws of fire, she was able to win twice. The quality of the combatants in this arena is really low. Linley had simply seen far too many powerful experts. Bluefire, Beirut, Learmonth, Royal Wing, Elkin, Fusro. Even the Gunmontin he had defeated was far superior to these people. Next to Linley, the big bearded Bates said softly, Linley, any high gods who wish to participate in this arena are permitted to, so of course there will be differences in quality. However, true experts will occasionally appear as well, which is why the ordinary battles will of course be considered by you as uninteresting. Occasionally appear. Linley shook his head, feeling resigned. The reason he had come was to watch experts do battle. According to their plans, they would only stay for a day or two at this Malugo island. After finishing their shopping at the Free Castle, they would leave. He didn't have time to wait here for experts to appear. Unfortunate. Linley sighed. The experts here at the arena are actually fairly common. Bates said in a hushed voice. The High God Arena has a rule: if one can defeat 10 combatants in a row, then all items at the Free Castle will be 10% off. If one wins 50 victories, everything in the Free Castle will be 20% off. But if you win 100 victories, all items in the Free Castle will be at half price, and in addition, a reward of 10 billion inkstones will be given. At the same time, one will be qualified to enter a secret area of the western part of the island to do a special viewing. Half-price shopping and a 10 billion inkstone reward? Linley didn't care too much about those, but a special viewing of a secret area in the western island. What does that mean? Linley was rather puzzled. The eastern part of the island was publicly open to anyone, but the western part of the island was forbidden to outsiders. However, Linley had never heard of a secret area in the western part of the island. Malugo Island is jointly controlled and run by 5 great clans. The disciples of these 5 clans, as well as the island guards, all live on the western part of the island. However, supposedly, the western part of the island has an extremely important hidden area. Only someone who receives a joint invitation from the 5 clans or someone who wins 100 victories is qualified to go pay a visit. Bates sighed. Linley couldn't help but feel curious. 5 major clans jointly managed Malugo Island. Then, what was this so-called secret area on the western part of the island? Bates, you've never gone to take a look. Linley looked at him. I would very much like to. Bates shook his head and laughed. Only, I value my own life rather highly. Winning 10 victories, for me, wouldn't be too hard. But 100? After all, not all combatants will be very weak. If an expert suddenly appears, won't I be finished? Can it be that nobody has been so lucky as to only encounter weaklings during the 100 battles? Linley asked. Impossible. Bates shook his head. Even if you are lucky and only encounter weak high gods during the first 99 battles whom you defeat, at the 100th battle, the 5 clans will arrange for one of their own experts to go test the challenger. Every single person who was truly victorious in 100 battles is a true expert, and has at least my level of power. Linley nodded slightly. It made sense. The 5 clans wouldn't so casually toss out 10 billion inkstones to someone who was lucky but weak. The reward alone is 10 billion inkstones. The 5 clans truly are rich and profligate. Linley said to himself. Linley, if you try for yourself, winning 100 battles would be very easy. Bates said enticingly. Generally speaking, someone at the 6-star fiend level is capable of winning 100 battles. Lucky 5-star fiends also have a shot. After all, generally speaking, you might not see a 7-star fiend participate in the arena even so much as once every 10,000 years. Linley chuckled. That was of course the case. Would an almighty 7-star fiend care about 10 billion inkstones? But of course, as time passed, over the course of 10,000 years, perhaps a 7-star fiend might appear to take part. Boss, quick, look. BB said urgently. Linley looked at BB, puzzled. Not just BB, even Delia and the others all called out, Linley, quick, look at the person who appeared in mid-air. That's the person we encountered back then. After having seen the first battle, Linley wasn't too interested in the arena battles any longer. But at this moment, Linley immediately turned to look. What he saw shocked him. In the wide, empty space, there was a familiar figure. Him. A look of amazement appeared on Linley's face. Who would have expected that an event which happens perhaps once every 10,000 years is happening right now? Such a powerful expert really has come to participate. In the empty space of the arena, a cold, callous man, dressed in a long black robe and carrying a warblade on his back was standing there. His long black hair fluttered loosely in the wind. He stood there like a glacier who had existed for countless years, icy and unapproachable. In his eyes, electric sparks were dancing. It's him. Bates cleared his throat and said in amazement, if he participates, isn't he guaranteed to win 100 victories? The nearby BB said, puzzled, I remember that he traveled faster than us. Logically speaking, he should have arrived at Malogo Island long before us. He shouldn't be here with us at the same time. Traveling by himself, that black-haired man was indeed very fast. But Linley thought back to the conversations of the others in the restaurants. From Blue Maple City to Malogo Island, all of the larger bandit forces had been destroyed. Perhaps it was because he destroyed so many bandit forces on the way. Or perhaps he was training on the way. Linley said to himself. Linley immediately began to watch the arena carefully. After all, the person battling was the powerful black-haired man. You are too weak. Beat it. A calm voice echoed in the air above the arena. The speaker was the black-haired man. His opponent was dressed in a long white robe, and was a handsome, violet-haired youth who wielded a scepter that was flashing with white light. The viewing area immediately burst into a commotion. It had been many years since they saw someone so arrogant, to order the opponent to beat it before the battle even began. The violet-haired youth, hearing this word, couldn't help but feel enraged. You'll only know after fighting. The black-haired man couldn't help but stare at him. Swish. Suddenly, 2 bolts of electric light shot out from the black-haired man's eyes. The speed was so fast that the violet-haired youth wasn't able to dodge at all. It directly slammed into the violet-haired youth's body, and the violet-haired youth trembled slightly, then collapsed, never to rise again. The hundreds of thousands of onlookers were all momentarily stunned. The entire viewing platform was utterly still. Weaklings should not come. If you do, You are looking for death. Next challenger. Someone stronger. I'll just keep fighting here. The black-haired man said calmly. Consecutive battles. This was an extremely arrogant display. Because if one engaged in consecutive battles, one wouldn't have the chance to choose one's opponent. Regardless of who the next opponent was, he had to do battle. Even if the next opponent was an Asura, he'd still have to do battle. But of course, there was no way an Asura would participate. Thus, as long as one wasn't completely hot-heated, generally speaking only a true expert would dare to do consecutive battles. Lomio, one victory. A voice rang out from within the arena. Everyone, right now, Mr. Lomio has chosen to engage in consecutive battles. Any high god, no matter who, is permitted to participate. Anyone who is interested can immediately go down below to register. Alright, now, time for the second battle. Linley watched without blinking. He watched straight from the first to the 10th battle. As for the 11th battle, it wasn't that Linley didn't want to continue watching, it was that he no longer had the chance to. This was because every person who wanted to fight in the arena could only fight 10 battles each day. Even if one wanted to fight 100 battles, one would have to spread it out over 10 days. Lomio fought 10 consecutive battles, gaining victory easily in each one. His power was so great that the onlookers all found it hard to breathe as they watched. Too powerful. Linley's heart was trembling. This person is very skilled in both material attacks and soul attacks. In addition, from start to finish, he's never even drawn his warblade. Lomio. Linley memorized this name. They went to watch a few battles at the God Arena and the Demigod Arena. BB even joined the God Arena and fought 10 battles in a row. Given BB's power, just by unleashing a bit of his might, he easily won 10 victories. After leaving the arena, Linley's group headed straight for the free castle. BB, how bored are you? You actually went to compete. Linley laughed. 10 victories, you know. At least I got this medallion. I'll be getting a 10% discount when shopping. BB said delightedly. Linley was speechless. How much money could shopping possibly use up? 10% off was nothing to them. Given the wealth which Linley and BB currently had, a discount of 10% was meaningless. The free castle is beautifully built. Linley looked at the distant, dark green walls and the red-topped ancient castle. This castle's entrance was like a non-stop flood of people. This place has many products for sale. Some of the Starmist see, some from other continents. It has even more things for sale than the black sand castles of the Redbud continent. Aix sighed in amazement. Linley's group immediately entered through the gateway. At the sides of the entrance to the free castle, a man with black hair who was dressed in a long, loose robe was lazily lying down in the grass, holding and nursing a bottle of wine. If Linley had seen him, he would immediately have recognized him. This was an old friend who, like them, had come from the Yulan continent. Caesar. Caesar currently looked very dispirited. Last time? Haha, last time. Caesar raised his head to laugh loudly, his tears dripping down. Quite a few people on the streets turned to look at him, but none of them would be so bored as to interfere. Linley, already at the gateway, suddenly turned to look into the distance. He stared carefully, but around him was a sea of people. Could I have misheard? Linley, just now, vaguely felt as though he had heard Caesar's voice. But there were many people with similar voices, and although Linley looked carefully, he didn't see Caesar. I must have heard wrong. Linley shook his head and sighed. Boss, let's head in. What are you looking at? BB said, and Delia looked towards Linley as well. Let's go in. Linley laughed. He thus entered the free castle along with Delia. But what Linley didn't know was that Caesar was lying in the grass by the road. If Caesar had stood up, Linley would perhaps have seen him, but he was lying down, How could Linley discover him? Book 16, Starmist C, Chapter 17, A Confrontation. Maluto Island. A dazzling jewel of the Starmist Sea. An unofficial force which was actually capable of building up a free castle, capable of allowing trade. In addition, it had been in existence for countless years. This was indeed a queer thing. Because of low taxation rates as well as other attractive policies, countless merchants of the infernal realm all gathered here. Every day, the number of customers who came to the free castle were beyond number. The free castle had a total of 6 layers. 4 of them were publicly available for guests to enter, while Linley's group was currently on the first floor's main hall. Fighting is strictly forbidden in the free castle as well. It is very safe here. Everyone can go their own ways here and buy whatever they want by themselves. After finishing, we'll gather together. Linley glanced at the people around him and spoke. This group of people had already very naturally taken Linley as their leader. Everyone agreed. After all, everyone's amount of wealth was different and different things to buy. The group immediately split apart, with everyone heading in different directions. Linley, I'll go browsing as well. Olivier said to Linley, and then left by himself to go roam the free castle. The only ones remaining were Linley, Delia, and Bibi. Boss, where to first? Bibi was very excited. He had an enormous fortune on him, and so naturally he looked forward to spending it. Linley looked around, then saw that at the sides of the main hall, there were sales counters with signs for various items. These sales counters had items which were all quite low priced, most under 100 inkstones. Linley remembered how when he had been at the Redbud Castle, there had been 3 stories, with each story representing a different level of price. Most likely, this free castle was the same. I'll head straight for the 4th level. Most likely, the 4th floor has the best items for the highest price. It wasn't that Linley was wasteful of his money, he understood that in the infernal realm, the best items cost more money. Bibi was the first to walk forward, while Linley and Delia followed from behind as they constantly moved up the stairways. There's certainly a large number of island guards here. Linley noticed that throughout the free castle, those blood-red armored high god warriors could be seen. Delia laughed. With so many island guards present, even if someone wanted to fight, they wouldn't dare. Linley nodded. Bibi carefully inspected those island guards. How many people can possibly resist the combined attacks of a group of high gods? Most people naturally wouldn't dare to cause trouble. Even if there is an expert capable of resisting the surrounding group of island guards, most likely more island guards would quickly head here. Maluto Island has existed for countless years. Their power is nothing to joke about. As he spoke, Linley led his group into the 4th floor of the free castle. The 4th floor's main hall held an enormous exhibition area with a number of trade items on display within. Every single sign showed exceedingly astonishing prices. The lowest was marked in millions of inkstones, while the higher one started at 100 million inkstones. Most deities wouldn't dare to enter a place like this. Boss, this place has death god golems. Bibi said excitedly. Death god golems. Linley immediately turned to look in the direction of Bibi's pointing finger. Indeed, there was a large display area with several death god golems on display. Delia laughed. Linley, you finally found it? Linley immediately laughed as he walked over. He had wanted to buy some death god golems long ago. At a critical point in time, one could use it to completely entangle an opponent, and then flee. Only, death god golems weren't something you could simply buy with money. Linley had made inquiries in the other cities he had passed through, but hadn't found any death god golems for sale at all. Hey, how much do your death god golems sell for? Bibi was the first to ask. The shopkeeper was an icy-looking youth with short black hair and violet eyes. He was currently seated in his shop with his eyes closed. Hearing Bibi's words, he opened his eyes and said calmly, The price is marked very clearly on the sign. Go read it for yourself. And then he shut his eyes again. Linley couldn't help but laugh. Someone who ran a business but had an attitude like this really was rare. Is this person relying on the fact that death god golems are easy to sell? Delia laughed. Linley nodded, then glanced at the price list. Death god golems were divided into 3 levels, based on the toughness of their bodies. High-level death god golems had bodies that were as tough as high god artifacts, and were exceedingly hard to destroy. Low-level, mid-level, high-level. High-level death god golems each cost 150 million inkstones. This price was actually reasonable. How many high-level death god golems do you have? Linley asked. Only now did the black-haired youth open his eyes. Frowning, he glanced at Linley. How many are you buying? 100. Do you have that many? Bibi said. Linley couldn't help but look at Bibi. He had no intentions of buying so many. It must be understood that to control a death god golem to engage in battle, one had to focus one's mind on it to control it. Generally, each person could only control a single one. But of course, if one didn't have to control them too exquisitely, a single person could control quite a few. Linley currently had 4 souls. He could simultaneously control 4 death god golems with perfect accuracy. But of course, if Linley's original body was battling with the enemy, at most he could have his 3 extra souls accurately control 3 death god golems total. If the level of control didn't have to be too high, then he would be able to control much more. The cold man shook his head. I can at most sell you 10 high-level death god golems. If you can sell 10, I'll take 10. Linley laughed. Linley was already very satisfied with this figure. Also, those mid-level golems. Give me 200 of those as well. Linley was preparing to accurately control the high-level golems. As for the mid-level ones, in a time of emergency, they would be used as cannon fodder. Mid-level death god golems were worth 15 million. 200. The cold youth shook his head. I can at most provide 100. That's fine too. Linley happily paid for and took those 10 high-level death god golems and 100 mid-level death god golems. Buying these death god golems cost a total of 2.7 billion inkstones. To Linley, this was nothing at all. The amount of money he himself had was nearly 200 billion inkstones. As for Bibi, he had gathered countless amethysts, which made up an astonishing fortune. Actually, the total price should have been 3 billion inkstones, but Bibi had that 10% discount medallion which he had won in the arena for 10 victories. After having sold those 10 high-level death god golems and 100 mid-level death god golems, a rare smile was on the face of that cold, callous youth. With a wave of his hand, he collected all of the items of his store into his interspatial ring, then turned and left the 4th floor. He actually leave? Bibi stared. He's most likely sold off all of his product. Those remaining low-level death god golems aren't much. Linley guessed. Death god golems were very hard to make. If one had money, one would still find them hard to purchase. After all these years of wandering various cities, Linley had yet to find any death god golems. One could imagine how rare they were. Let's go. Keep shopping for more treasures. Bibi said in a high, excited voice. Walking to the main hall of the 4th floor's various exhibits, Linley sensed how wonderful having money was. He directly purchased many precious treasures. It must be understood, these treasures were things which people might perhaps only obtain after risking their lives. But as for Linley, all he had to do was spend money. Where should we go next? Bibi said. We're pretty much done here in the 4th floor. On the 4th floor, only distant clothing stores were available. Bibi, at least, had no interest in clothing. As he saw it, shopping for clothes was boring. Wait. We have the clothing stores. Let's go take a look. Linley said hurriedly. Delia, what say you? Linley had noticed long ago that Delia would occasionally glance towards them. Women were always quite intrigued by clothing. Delia snorted, then walked over. There were some women trying out the clothes of the shop, but when Linley saw the prices listed, he felt a hint of surprise in his heart. These clothes are ridiculously expensive. All over 1,000,000 inkstones. Although he said this, Linley wouldn't mind buying whatever Delia liked. After browsing through the 3 clothing shops, Delia arrived at the 4th without having found anything she liked. There were quite a few guests here. Business was quite good. Not bad. As Linley entered, he felt as though every set of clothing gave him a very superb feeling, as though they were exquisite works of art. Only, the price of clothes here was astonishing as well. The other places had clothes going for around 1,000,000 inkstones, but here, almost every single set of clothes was over 10,000,000 inkstones, with only a very few number being less. Linley, how about this one? After multiple selections, Delia took a fancy to a primarily pink outfit. Linley glanced at it, then his eyes gleamed. Excellent. Delia was smiling as beautifully as a flower. Clearly, she too had taken a fancy to the set of clothes. Only, the price of this set of clothes was simply too astonishing. Just this set alone actually cost more than 80,000,000 inkstones. This was the second most expensive one in the store. The most expensive one cost 100,000,000 inkstones. The nearby shopkeeper immediately said warmly, "This set of clothes is made from materials that come from the divine plane of light. It was made from the feathers of Boise Swan Menbosie, and the owner of every single feather had reached the high god level. The materials for the set of clothes alone, combined with the shipping cost, is an astronomical figure. Its toughness is comparable to a high god artifact." Oh! Linley was rather surprised. Beautiful yet sturdy. This price made sense. Buy it? Linley nodded. The owner, seeing Linley nod so freely and easily, felt a surge of joy. At the same time, he was also secretly shocked. People really couldn't be judged by their appearances. Superficially, Linley looked as though he was only a god, but he didn't mind at all about paying nearly 100,000,000 for a set of clothes. See this. Bibi reached out and flipped out his 10 victories medallion. The shopkeeper couldn't help but be astonished, and then he laughed. All right, 10% off. You only need to pay 76,000,000 inkstones. Linley laughed, then paid the money. Delia put on this set of pink clothes, carefully looking at herself in the mirror, clearly very happy. Looking at Delia's slightly blushing face, set off by the pinkness of her clothes, he felt that she was so devilishly charming. Linley had to say that the set of clothes was quite worth it. At this moment, outside the store, 6 people came in, the leader a callous-looking youth with short red hair who stood 2.2 meters tall. He was currently staring at Delia, dressed in that outfit, and a smile was on his face. "Young master, you've taken a fancy to it?" A silver-haired elder behind him said softly. "Yes. Not bad." The short red-haired youth nodded slightly, then said loudly, "Shopkeeper, do you have any more of that set of clothes that woman is wearing?" The shopkeeper, hearing this, turned to look at Delia, then quickly shook his head. "Sorry. The materials for the set of clothes are simply too rare. My shop only has this one set. Every single set of clothes in my shop is quite precious. Most of them are unique. Just one." The red-haired callous youth frowned, then glanced sideways at Delia. The silver-haired elder behind him, quite intelligently, immediately walked forward towards Linley and Delia, saying directly to Delia, "Our young master has taken a fancy to the clothes you are wearing. Sell it to us." Linley, hearing this, was startled. He couldn't help but turn to look at them. "Give us the clothes. We'll pay you for it. However much the price was, We'll pay double. The silver-haired elder said calmly. Hearing this, the shopkeeper clearly was rather regretful. Double. Linley laughed, then glanced back at Delia. Forget about double. Even if you wanted to pay us 10 times as much, we wouldn't sell it. The silver-haired elder's face immediately turned ugly. Hey, that guy over there is your young master. Bibi glanced at the red-haired, callous youth, then pursed his lips. Young master, the clothes you are wearing are quite excellent. I've taken a fancy to them. You can go ahead and sell it to me. I'll pay you double as well. Are you willing to sell? Book 16, Starmist C, Chapter 18. The blood-colored Maluo insignia. The red-haired youth, hearing these words, couldn't help but narrow his eyes, his gaze growing cold. The silver-haired elder snorted with cold anger as well. You'd best know what's good for you. It's just a set of clothes, right? Be careful. Don't lose your lives for the sake of clothes. But Bibi paid no attention to the silver-haired elder's threats. You threaten me? Bibi rolled his eyes as he spoke angrily. But Linley realized something more. Linley carefully inspected this red-haired youth, then at the silver-haired elder. He secretly mused, most of the people who come to the 4th floor of the Free Castle for shopping are quite wealthy. In the infernal realm, most people who have money have great power as well. For the silver-haired elder to dare to be so arrogant in a place like this means that he should have some sort of a background. Although Linley wasn't afraid, in a strange place like this, he didn't want to make any enemies either. Bibi, Delia, let's go. Linley pulled the enraged Bibi as he began to walk towards the outside of the store. Linley didn't want to continue wasting time with these people. Whoosh. The 4 people behind the red-haired youth immediately blocked Linley's way. The 4 were all high gods. You want to leave? The red-haired youth let out a cold laugh, a very condescending look in on face. There's nothing that I want that I cannot get. I'm in a good mood today and don't want to fight. You'd best hand that set of clothes to me. Otherwise. Linley couldn't help but begin to feel his anger rise as well. The offer of double price is gone now. However, we'll still give you the same price. Don't say that our Bagshaw Bage Xiao clan takes advantage of people. The silver-haired elder snickered as well. These words instantly caused the owner of the clothing store's face to change. Bagshaw clan? Linley was intrigued, but unfortunately, this was his first time at Maluo Island, and he had never heard of this Bagshaw clan. You'd best give them the clothes. The store owner urged. Linley, this Bagshaw clan seems to be rather formidable. Just give them the clothes. Delia sent through divine sense to Linley as well. Linley glanced at the nearby Delia. He knew that Delia, in her heart, really didn't want to part with it. Only, Delia didn't want to offend people for Linley's sake. It's fine. Linley laughed calmly. And then, Linley turned to look at those people and barked coldly, What, you want to start a fight in the Free Castle? Immediately, those people were stunned. This was the Free Castle. The laws and mores here forbade fighting. Anyone who engaged in combat would be mercilessly slaughtered by the island guards. Right at this moment, the patrolling guards on the main hall of the 4th floor noticed the situation as well, and immediately, a small group of 10 of them hurriedly walked over. The leader, a bald, burly man, shouted loudly, What's going on? You want to cause trouble here? Are you looking for death? Right, they are causing trouble. Bibi said angrily. Everyone, we bought a set of clothes, but these people here want to force us to sell it to them. We didn't, so they barred our way. Linley watched this happen calmly. Since the Free Castle had its own rules, then those rules definitely wouldn't be allowed to be broken by anyone, no matter who they were. Otherwise, who would care about the rules? Captain. These people are rather arrogant. The other guards immediately called out. You want to force others to sell their clothes to you. The bald burly man stared with eyes as wide as a bull's, a look of anger in his gaze. Such audacity! You dare to be so bold in the Free Castle. No matter who you are, nobody here in the Free Castle has the right to be so brash. BB immediately began to chortle. The arrogant red-haired youth frowned, glancing sideways with a cold look at the leader of the guards. With a flip of his hand, he revealed a blood-red insignia, covered by marvelous patterns. The patterns on the insignia was very similar to the patterns on the armor of the island guards. A blood-colored Malugo insignia. The bald warrior stuttered, and his face instantly changed dramatically. "Milord." The 10 island guards, the bald leader included, immediately bowed respectfully as they spoke. Linley, Delia, and BB were shocked as well. And it is actually a high-level blood-colored Malugo insignia. The shopkeeper was stunned as well. There were, in total, 2 types of the Malugo insignias which conferred extremely high power within Malugo Island. The first type was green, while the other type was blood-colored. Blood-colored Malugo insignias represented extremely great power. At the same time, they were also extremely rare. A blood-colored Malugo insignia. Linley didn't understand what sort of treasure this thing was, but judging from the looks of those 10 guards, Linley understood the value of this insignia. The other island guards on the 4th floor also noticed the special event occurring here. Immediately, quite a few warriors hurried over, and even the general manager of the 4th floor hurried over. Immediately, hundreds of island guards surrounded the area. "Young Master Sequeira Saikala, what is it? You want to buy clothes for your wife?" The general manager was a handsome, gold-haired youth. Seeing the young master, he immediately greeted him warmly. The red-haired, cold youth named Sequeira laughed calmly and nodded. "Boss, the situation looks bad." BB sent through divine sense. How could Linley not have realized this already? "Linley, let's just give them the clothes." Delia sent through divine sense, urging him. Linley considered for a moment. Delia definitely liked the set of clothes very much, and he should keep it for her sake. But clearly, the opponent came from a ridiculously powerful background. Linley decided that he might as well swallow his anger for now. "Sorry, Delia." Linley looked at Delia, who laughed and shook her head. Seeing this, the silver-haired elder laughed, while the red-haired youth snickered as well. "Humph, now it's too late." The silver-haired elder snorted in an ill-tempered manner. "We won't give you a single inkstone. Do you want to offer it or not?" The silver-haired elder had a belly full of fire right now. As a member of the Bagshaw clan, how had he ever had to swallow his temper? "However, if you give it to us now, we'll generously spare your lives." The silver-haired elder said disdainfully. "Mother of Asterisker, keep dreaming." BB was indescribably angry. Linley began to laugh. Laughter born of anger. He himself had been willing to swallow his anger to end this situation, but these people had actually taken him for a soft target, easily abused. What is going on with this free castle? Even when shopping here, we suffer threats and pressure. And a demand for us to give our items without compensation. This free castle isn't free at all. It seems the reputation of this Malugo island is fake, and these island guards are nothing more than ornaments. Linley's voice echoed throughout the 4th floor. Immediately, the other customers all looked towards them. The looks on the faces of the island guards instantly turned ugly. The face of the young Master Sequeira of the Bagshaw clan turned sinister as well. The rules of Malugo Island, which had been passed down since antiquity. In the free castle, nobody was permitted to engage in battle, no matter who they were. Any who violated this would be killed. If the rules were broken, in the future, who would dare do business here? Young Master Sequeira, this isn't easy to handle. The general manager, that gold-haired youth, said through divine sense. The cold, Arrogant young Master Sequeira also knew what was important and what wasn't. Glancing at Linley's group, he said calmly, "Let's go." As he spoke, he led his people away. The general manager, that gold-haired youth, glanced at Linley, then sent through divine sense, "Kid, be careful. Offending Sequeira in Maluto Island means that while you'll be safe in the free castle, as soon as you leave it," and then, the gold-haired youth left. Those island guards all left one by one as well. Those people really mother***ing went too far. Bibi was unable to restrain his temper. "Linley, it's all my fault," Delia said softly. Linley tightly clenched Delia's hand, shaking his head. "It isn't your fault. In the infernal realm, sometimes, if we have to endure, we will. But if someone goes too far, then we might as well just have a battle with them." Linley was laughing coldly in his heart as well. At worst, he would just go all out. He could use a drop of Sovereign's might and engage in a wild slaughter. What was there to fear? "Let's go out," Linley said. Linley knew very well that at Maluto Island, the Bagshaw clan definitely had to be an extremely powerful force. Most likely, they were one of the 5 clans which controlled Maluto Island. Linley immediately decided that after finishing buying things in the free castle, they would head directly out of Maluto Island. "I was originally planning to watch the next 9 days of competitions for that Lomio." Linley shook his head and sighed to himself. Linley's group intentionally strolled about for a while on the 3rd floor of the free castle, and then came to their original gathering spot. By now, half the people had already gathered here again. Linley's group only had to wait for less than an hour before Aix, the last one to return, came back. Sorry. There were many things in this free castle which normally aren't for sale in the Black Sand Castle or the Redbud Castle, so I had to take a bit of time," Aix said hurriedly. Linley's group all knew that Aix was a merchant. It wasn't strange for him to spend a bit more time. "Everyone, you can head back first," Linley said. "Huh?" The big bearded Bates, Aix, and the others all immediately looked at Linley. "In this free castle, we irritated members of the Bagshaw clan. Right now, there are people following us. For your safety, you need to leave first. Right, you can go to the restaurant we first ate at earlier, and we'll all regroup there. If we haven't arrived within 1 day, you can head off first," Linley said very directly. Bates and the others were all shocked. In the end, everyone wisely chose to leave. However, Delia, Bibi, and Olivier stayed by Linley. After waiting a long time after the others left, Linley's group headed towards the exit of the free castle. Behind Linley's group, however, was the silver-haired elder, who stared at the backs of Linley's group. "You offended my clan's young master, and you want to leave alive." The silver-haired elder immediately picked up the pace to follow. "We're out. Everyone, be careful." Linley stepped out of the free castle, but then his face suddenly changed. At the 2 sides of the wide street, over 10 people immediately drew close to them. The 2 lines of people immediately surrounded Linley's group while at the same time separating them off from the other customers of the free castle. "Haha, you still want to leave?" The silver-haired elder came out from outside. As soon as he had exited the 4th floor, he had immediately arranged for 2 of the guards of the young master to lead 10 other high gods to wait at the entrance. No matter what, they wouldn't let Linley's group flee. It had been a long time since his young master had to swallow his temper like that. "Boss, they really did set an ambush for us," Bibi said in a low voice. Linley glanced sideways at the 2 rows of 12 high gods. These high gods were roughly 10 meters away from Linley, but to high gods, a distance of 10 meters was absolutely nothing. Battle could begin at any moment. At the same time, a large number of people on the streets immediately hurried over to surround and watch, and they all began to chit-chat over the situation. So many high gods, surrounding just those few people. That silver-haired elder is the housekeeper for the Bagshaw clan. I recognize him. Those people are doomed. They actually offended the Bagshaw clan. The chatter went on, but Linley faced it all calmly. Walk towards the front, Linley said through divine sense. Immediately, Linley's group of 4 immediately walked towards the front, not even looking at the 12 high gods to each side of them. You want to leave? An explosive shout. Instantly, one of the high gods flew towards Linley. Clearly, as he saw it, Linley was just a god. He alone would be more than enough to deal with him. F***ck off. Linley held little regard for ordinary high gods. The divine earth power on his body flexed out, and instantly, an astonishing repulsive force was applied to that high god's body. That high god who had been pouncing towards Linley with his divine artifact drawn, before even touching Linley, was instantly flicked backwards by that astonishing repulsive force, while Linley himself continued to walk forward. How is that possible? The high god stared with wide eyes. The silver-haired elder's face changed. He shouted, "Attack!" Instantly, the 12 high gods simultaneously pounced towards Linley's group. But right at this moment, with Linley at the center, a faint earthen yellow hemisphere that was 10 meters in diameter suddenly appeared, trapping all of the 12 attacking high gods within its reach. Blackstone space. Those 12 high gods, because of the astonishing gravitational force, were drawn directly to the ground. How is that possible? The 12 hadn't even had a chance to react when suddenly, a bizarre wind sound directly entered their consciousness. It was much like the strange wind sound Linley and the others had heard in the Amethyst Mountains. Their soul was affected, and the 12 of them were instantly drawn into a stupor. Swish! A devilish violet sword light flashed, chopping through the necks of those 12 men like a giant guillotine. Bang! Bang! The heads of those 12 men exploded, and their divine sparks fell to the floor. Everyone watching the scene in front of the wide gates of the free castle was stunned. The previously rowdy streets instantly turned silent, with the most astonished one being that silver-haired elder, who stared disbelievingly at this sight. 12 high gods, killed with one sword. These ordinary high gods, within my Blackstone space, will have their souls drawn into a stupor. They are only able to stand there and be slaughtered by me. Linley naturally hadn't paid any mind to these sorts of people. High gods who were in a stupor were like blocks of wood that couldn't fight back. Killing them was simplicity itself. Linley. Delia looked towards Linley with a hint of excitement in her eyes. All women loved it when their man was powerful. Let's go. Linley laughed calmly. Linley's group of 4 continued to walk forward, while on the wide streets, the previously rowdy crowd immediately split a path for them, allowing Linley's group to leave. Everyone who had seen Linley's sword just now were all staring in Linley in shock and admiration. In the infernal realm, the strong were worshipped. He killed 12 high gods with one sword. This lord is simply too powerful. I originally thought he was just a god-level fiend. What do you know? This lord was hiding his true power. As I see it, this lord is at least a 6-star fiend. Those who watched this scene were all chattering and discussing this event. So formidable. Currently, that arrogant, red-haired youth, young Master Sequeira, as well as that gold-haired youth, both appeared at the entrance. Actually, this had been arranged by Sequeira to begin with. Naturally, he was watching everything in secret. At this moment, he too was watching, stunned, at Linley's disappearing back. Young master. The silver-haired elder said hurriedly. But Sequeira just frowned as he looked at the gold-haired youth. This person killed 12 high gods so easily with a single sword. I thought he was a god. So he was a high god who was hiding his true power. Could you tell how powerful he truly was? Sequeira knew very well how powerful the gold-haired youth was. As a chief of a 1,000-man corps, the gold-haired youth had the power of a 6-star fiend. If even the gold-haired youth couldn't tell how powerful this person was, then this person was definitely very fearsome. I can't see through him. The gold-haired youth had been staring towards Linley this entire time. This person has been hiding his power, but I can't see through it at all. And from the sword attack he used just now, actually, the sword attack wasn't that formidable. What was formidable was that those 12 high gods seemed to have gone silly, allowing that sword to kill them without resistance. I didn't expect that after the arena had a seemingly 7-star fiend level combatant, Lomeo, appear, yet another seemingly 7-star fiend level combatant has appeared here. The gold-haired youth's face was solemn. Book 16, Starmist C, Chapter 19, War God. Caesar. After having killed 12 high gods with a single sword, he had shocked his opponents. Thus, Linley's group of 4 left safely. Linley, will that young master of the Bagshaw clan bring experts for revenge? Olivier frowned, somewhat concerned. Linley chuckled. Delia replied, Olivier, in truth, the young master of the Bagshaw clan and the 3 of us were only in a dispute because of clothing. And then, Linley killed those 12 ordinary high gods. To an ancient clan like his, the death of 12 ordinary high gods is nothing at all. I imagine that this young master wouldn't be so rash as to seek revenge without clearly investigating. If they come, we will kill them. BB snorted. We're about to leave Malugo Island anyways. Who cares about the Bagshaw clan? No matter how powerful they are, can it be that they can control other areas also? Let's go. These large clans are disdainful towards lesser individuals, but against true experts, they are still somewhat cautious. Linley chuckled. Linley, when attacking, had been viewed by others as a high god, and yet his aura was that of a god. The enemies would definitely believe that Linley was hiding his aura. Actually, Linley really was only just a god. How could they possibly discover any high god aura from him? However, the enemies would only believe that Linley was so powerful that his ability to hide his aura was simply too great. Given his ability to hide his aura, as well as the sword attack he had just displayed, the opponents had plenty of material to begin wildly speculating over. No matter how powerful a clan was, they wouldn't want to offend an ultimate expert. After all, a true expert, by himself, could destroy a clan. In front of an ultimate expert, human wave tactics were ineffective. That young master Sequeira wouldn't dare to offend a possibly 7-star fiend over a small fit of pique. Linley's group immediately headed outside. After walking for a while, Linley didn't discover anyone following them. In his heart, he understood that young master Sequeira should have really given up the idea of getting revenge. BB muttered, Malugo Island is quite a beautiful island. Unfortunately, after being here just a single day, we have to leave. I really wanted to become 100 battles victor in that arena. How could BB possibly lose in a fight against those gods? He could just stand there and let them beat on him. Unless the opponent also had a Godspark weapon or a sovereign artifact. Most likely, only with those items would they be able to harm BB. Let's go. In the future, we'll still have the chance. Linley laughed calmly. Linley, quick, look. Delia, somewhat stunned, pulled at Linley and called at him. Linley immediately turned and followed Delia's gaze. As he did, Linley was shocked. From a distant translucent restaurant window, he was able to see an icy man with long red hair seated on the other side of the window. The war god, O'Brien. War god. Linley was overjoyed. War god. Olivier looked over, puzzled, and then he too was overjoyed. All of these experts who had entered the infernal realm understood that it would be extremely hard for them to run into their old friends from the same material plane. The feeling of meeting with their old friends was enough to make them very excited and energetic. Haha, war god. BB was the first to dash towards the restaurant. Linley's group immediately followed him as well. Entering the restaurant, They saw that this was a fairly quiet restaurant with fairly few customers. O'Brien was currently sitting there, quietly drinking a cup of tea. The war god actually became a high god. Linley was somewhat startled. In the past, the war god had relied on fusing with a divine spark to become a god. In as short a period of time as 1,000 years, he became a high god. There was only one explanation: he had fused with a divine spark. "Hey, war god." BB immediately ran towards the war god's table. O'Brien, his head lowered to his cup of tea, was startled. War god. In the infernal realm, it had been many years since someone had addressed him in that manner. O'Brien raised his head and saw BB by his table, and also Linley, Delia, and Olivier walking this way as well. The war god O'Brien's face went slack, and then he revealed a look of joy. "Linley, it's actually you four." "O'Brien, long time no see." Linley laughed. "Long time no see." O'Brien laughed as well. "Aren't you going to invite us to sit?" BB snorted. O'Brien immediately began to laugh. "Haha, it's fine if I don't invite others to sit, but how would I dare to not invite you, BB, to sit? Come, let's all sit together." As he spoke, O'Brien immediately beckoned towards a distant waiter, who immediately came over. "I don't want to eat right now," Linley said hurriedly. "Then we'll order some wine." O'Brien casually ordered some wine, and then everyone began to chat together. O'Brien asked Linley and Olivier about what had happened in recent years, while Linley gave a general description of the events which had occurred after their arrival in the infernal realm. However, he didn't go into too much detail regarding the dangers they had faced. After giving a brief summary, Linley's group concluded their description of what had happened in the Redbud continent. "We were trapped within the Amethyst Mountains for a time, but luckily were able to escape." Olivier, for example, discussed that matter with a single sentence. While they were chatting, Delia even especially set up her god realm to cover all of them within it, shutting out sound and preventing outsiders from eavesdropping. Linley had thought that O'Brien would be shocked, but O'Brien didn't seem to feel anything was amiss. Actually, O'Brien had always been in the Starmist Sea, and thus he knew very little about the Redbud continent. He didn't understand what being trapped in the Amethyst Mountains and then escaping really meant. "Linley, you really are audacious. The infernal realm is filled with countless dangers. If I hadn't been following Tarasi, I probably would have died in the Starmist Sea long ago. You, however, actually left the Redbud continent and began to hurry towards the Blood Ridge continent. Formidable. Admirable." O'Brien sighed in amazement. Olivier just chuckled. As Olivier saw it, given Linley's current strength, he would be able to roam the infernal realm with ease. As long as he didn't encounter any major foes, he definitely wouldn't be in any danger. "O'Brien, how about you? How has life been in the infernal realm?" Linley laughed as he asked. "Me? Not bad." O'Brien nodded. After arriving in the infernal realm, our group included Tarasi and Dylan. Although we ran into some dangerous situations, Tarasi and him were able to deal with it. Afterwards, Tarasi broke through from the god level to the high god level. He became a high god on his own. Linley couldn't help but be surprised. After Tarasi reached the high god level, he became truly formidable. O'Brien sighed in praise. Tarasi himself had fused two types of profound mysteries to begin with. Matching that with his innate divine ability, in the Starmist Sea, he is extremely formidable. He even once killed 3 5-star fiends. Killed 3 5-star fiends. Linley's group was shocked as well. But after considering it, Linley understood. Tarasi had become a high god independently and had fused two types of profound mysteries. If he was able to perfectly match his attacks with his innate divine ability as a divine beast, then it was possible for him to be comparable to a 6-star fiend. Right. Tarasi won 100 victories here at Maluto Island. O'Brien sighed in approval. Linley nodded to himself. Generally speaking, 6 Star Fiends were capable of gaining 100 victories. 5 Star Fiends, if lucky, could as well. It was possible for Taurasi to accomplish this. Dylan, in turn, won 100 victories at the God Arena. O'Brien laughed. Precisely because of this, Taurasi and Dylan both now live in the western part of the island. Taurasi gave us divine sparks to allow myself, Caesar, and Dylan's children to all reach the high god level. Linley now understood. So that was what had happened. Dylan's 2 children, those 6-eyed golden Ni lions, had both fused with divine sparks to become deities, and O'Brien had as well. Since they had already fused with divine sparks, they might as well just keep doing so. Only, given that they had used divine sparks to become high gods, their future potential was now rather slim. Delia smiled. It seems your life here isn't bad. That's right. O'Brien nodded, but then he seemed to have thought of something. He shook his head. But Caesar, What about Caesar? Linley hurriedly asked. Linley had a rather deep friendship with Caesar. Previously, in his homeland near Fenley City, Caesar had helped him. Afterwards, when Linley had gone to rescue those undying warriors, the 5 Barker brothers, at the critical, life and death moment, Caesar had once again helped him and saved him. Linley naturally was grateful towards Caesar for having helped him multiples times. Caesar is rather depressed these days. O'Brien shook his head and sighed. Depressed? BB stared. Caesar seems to have no cares in the world. How could he become depressed? Linley was rather puzzled as well. Problems of the heart, O'Brien said. A look of surprise appeared on the faces of Linley and the others. Caesar, in the Yulan continent, had been an extremely dissolute fellow who often changed women. There was no long-term woman for him. Even that holy lady of the frost goddess shrine, Caesar had ran away from as though fleeing a disaster. As Linley saw it, a person like him shouldn't suffer too much from matters of the heart. Seeing the looks on the faces of Linley and the others, O'Brien explained, at first, I was like you, unable to believe it. But this time, Caesar is for real. With regards to that woman, Cecily, Lee, it is as though he has been possessed. Him and that Cecily woman really fell in love. Caesar even told me that this time, he had found true love. Linley's group just listened, stunned. But of course, what happened between them in terms of their relationship, I'm not too clear. We wouldn't pry about their private affairs. All of us were just very happy that Caesar and Cecily were able to be with each other. Logically speaking, this was a good thing. O'Brien shook his head and laughed. Unfortunately, that Cecily had a very special status. She was actually a core member of one of the 5 major clans of Maluo Island, the Gaylord Gailuoda clan. In addition, not too long ago, she got married to young Master Sequeira of the Bagshaw clan. Young Master Sequeira? Linley's group of 4, upon hearing this name, exchanged glances. This matter actually had something to do with Sequeira? But not too long ago, Linley's group had gotten into a dispute with that Sequeira. What, are you surprised? We were surprised as well. But that's the truth. O'Brien sighed. Deities should have tough, resilient minds. Who would have imagined that Caesar seemed to have suffered a fatal wound? He's in a daze all day, either drinking, or just daydreaming or sleeping or training. He is extremely dispirited. Linley couldn't help but sympathize with Caesar. Although O'Brien described it all in a very ordinary manner, Linley himself had been heartbroken in love before as well. He knew well the heart-ripping pain of having his woman being taken away, and how that agony could make a person be able to barely breathe. The more deeply one loved, the more deeply one would be wounded. Caesar seems to have really fallen for her. Linley sighed. As they chatted, their wine was soon used up. It's a matter of time. This happened just recently after all. Caesar is just unable to get over it for now, I imagine. When time goes on, he should be better. O'Brien said, then stood up. Linley, come. Let's go meet with Taurasi, Dylan, and those two children of Dylan's. All of them are present. When they see you, they will definitely be very happy. Linley's group immediately rose as well. Boss, are we still going to head off with Ake's group? BB asked. No need. When the time comes, we'll travel alone. In addition, with Bates by their side, safety shouldn't be a problem. Linley, having met with a group of old friends, was in no rush to leave. As for his problem with Sequeira hadn't immediately attempted to gain revenge, and so clearly he probably wouldn't in the future. After all, if he really wanted to get revenge, he would have done so right away. Linley's group of 4 followed O'Brien, heading directly into the western part of the island. Malugo Island was divided into the eastern part and the western part. The western part was where the island guards, the 5 clans, and the others all lived. Outsiders were forbidden entry. It really is beautiful here. Linley saw the beautiful 2-story buildings from afar. Those are the homes for the island guards. O'Brien laughed. I'm here as well. Thanks to Taurasi's help, I also became an island guard. Island guards rotate their duty once a year. This year, I'm on break. In the area where the island guards lived, people were on patrol. Are we allowed to go in? BB was a bit nervous. It's fine. The residential area of the island guards aren't under strict supervision. As long as an island guard leads the way, you can go in. The place which is under very tight supervision is the place where those 5 clans live. However, they are deeper inside. As O'Brien spoke, his body suddenly became covered by a blood-red uniform armor. This was the proof of one's status as an island guard. The patrolling island guards immediately let them in. Linley's group of 4 thus followed O'Brien into the residential area of the island guards. Book 16, Starmist C, Chapter 20, With Child. The island guards lived in small buildings which dotted the mountains and forests of this area. Just by looking at the number of buildings, Linley could imagine what a terrifyingly large number of island guards there were here. The 5 clans must indeed be powerful, to be able to support such an enormous army of high gods. Linley couldn't help but sigh in amazement. Maintaining an army meant paying salaries. After all, nobody was willing to work for free. Generally speaking, high god soldiers would have fairly high pay. To support such an enormous army required an astonishing amount of wealth. However, just by looking at the number of people who passed through the arena as well the free castle, one could imagine how astonishingly wealthy Malugo Island was. We're here. O'Brien laughed. O'Brien, this building is quite large. Linley looked at this residence in surprise. This residence took up space that was roughly 10 times that of those ordinary residences. It had a large courtyard and 3 smaller buildings within. It was built as a standalone residence, and the walls had carvings as well. O'Brien laughed. This is Taurasi's residence. Generally speaking, high god victors of 100 battles, if they join the island guards, will have a salary as well as treatment far superior to that of ordinary island guards. Although I do have a small house of my own, normally, we all live at Taurasi's place. His place is large. As he spoke, O'Brien pushed the door open and went inside. Oh, O'Brien, you're back. A voice rang out. By the green grass off to the side of the courtyard, a green-haired man was seated in the meditative position. It was Taurasi. Taurasi turned to look at him and was about to say something, but suddenly he was stunned. He stared at Linley and the other 3 behind O'Brien. Linley, seeing the look on Taurasi's face, intentionally smirked at him. Swish. Taurasi instantly appeared in front of Linley's group. Ha ha. Tarasi slapped Linley on the shoulders. Linley, you guys actually came as well. This is so incredible and such a rare occurrence. The infernal realm is so vast, but we actually ran into each other here. Haha. Tarasi was very excited and happy. Bibi, Lord Beirut actually was able to bear with letting you come to the infernal realm. Tarasi noticed Bibi. Bibi pursed his lips. What, got a problem? It's fine, it's fine. Tarasi greeted everyone. Come, everyone, sit down. Dylan and Caesar are currently outside. Geez. Linley's group laughed, then sat down. Tarasi hurriedly said, you really came at a fortuitous time. Today I was still out on patrols. I just came back not long ago. It is destiny that our group of people from the Yulan continent can meet here today. Linley was very happy as well, and he also laughed and chatted. While chatting about he and Olivier had met, they naturally discussed the Amethyst Mountains as well. However, Linley's group once again just schemed over it with a word. Tarasi actually didn't seem to pay any attention to it at all. Or perhaps it was simply that he didn't understand what it really meant for Linley's group to have been able to exit the Amethyst Mountains. Actually, this was normal. Tarasi was a high god, true. But the amount of time he had spent in the infernal realm was simply too short. The things he knew about the infernal realm came mostly from those books he had read. Generally speaking, those geographical books would just give a simple explanation of the Amethyst Mountains. In the past, Linley had read some geography books as well, but before arriving at the Amethyst Mountains, he didn't truly know how dangerous they were. Kriayak. The courtyard door was pushed upon, and a black-haired man reeking of alcohol sauntered in, his eyes droopy with drunkenness as he gave off a clearly dispirited aura. It was Caesar. Seeing how Caesar currently was, Linley couldn't help but sigh in amazement. That former playboy who had enjoyed himself amongst the flowers, how had he ended up like this today? The events of the world truly were hard to explain. Caesar. Linley spoke out. Caesar heard that someone was calling to him, but he didn't care too much. He just glanced sideways at Linley, then continued to head towards his own residence. But after taking just 2 or 3 steps, his body paused, and he turned to look at Linley once again, his misty gaze slowly growing brighter. Linley. Caesar's voice contained disbelief in it as well. Caesar, long time no see. Linley began to laugh as well. Haha, Caesar, I'm Bibi. Bibi immediately jumped up also. Caesar took a deep breath, activating the divine power in his body. The odor of alcohol immediately vanished from his body, and he became much more sober. A rare hint of a smile appeared on Caesar's face as well. Linley, you came to the infernal realm as well? When did you come? Caesar was full of questions, and Linley's group chatted with him happily as well. Although Linley knew what had happened with Caesar, Linley hoped that Caesar's mood would improve. Clearly, seeing some of his old friends from their Yulan continent had caused Caesar to be invigorated. Linley, chat more with Caesar, but remember, don't raise that Cecily matter. Tarasi hurriedly sent through divine sense. The state Caesar was currently in was the best state he had been in during this recent period of time. I know. Linley replied. At the same time, Linley was also somewhat puzzled. What was so amazing about that Cecily woman, that this sort of dissolute playboy like Caesar would become so infatuated with her? Malugo Island. The residential area of the 5 clans. In the very center was the residence of the Bagshaw clan. The 5 clans were led by the Bagshaw clan, but the Bagshaw clan was actually not a very densely populated one, with the clan members far fewer than the other 4 clans. But precisely because of this, every member of the Bagshaw clan had a fairly high status. At present, in the rear flower gardens behind the Bagshaw clan's ancestral estate, 2 men who were 2.2 meters tall were currently walking together. One of the two men was a youth with short red hair, while the other was a middle-aged man with unbound, long red hair. If Linley was present, he would recognize that the youth with short red hair was Sequira. Sequira, you need to pay special attention to that man named Lomeo in the arena. The red-haired middle-aged man had thick eyebrows and large eyes. With each moment, he gave off a domineering aura. According to the servants' reports, this Lomeo is very likely a 7-star fiend. He has already achieved 10 consecutive victories on multiple days. In 2 more days, he'll have completed 100 victories. Yes, father. Sequira said respectfully. Sequira's father, Bakwil Bakwa Bagshaw, was the clan leader of the Bagshaw clan. Bakwil, despite having lived for countless years, only had 2 children. Each member of the Bagshaw clan had exceedingly few children, most having only 1. Having 2 children was already quite lucky. If he really is a 7-star fiend, then that's wonderful news. It's rare to meet a 7-star fiend. We can't let him slip away. Bakwil said calmly. I know, father. Sequiro laughed. Father, not long ago, you went to the secret area, so I didn't have a chance to tell you. 7 or 8 days ago, in the Free Castle, I met an expert. We had a small disagreement with each other, but that expert, with a single blow, killed 12 high gods. Killed 12 high gods. Bakwil looked towards him. There were quite a few experts capable of killing 12 ordinary high gods with one blow. This isn't the strange thing. The strange thing is, those 12 high gods hadn't even drawn near that expert, but they seemed to have gone silly and unresponsive, allowing that expert to kill them with one blow. Bakwil was surprised. Caused 12 high god experts to not be able to even resist? This man's soul is extremely strong. Bakwil evaluated. More importantly, Sequiro lowered his voice as he spoke. Father, that person was actually hiding his aura. From the outside, he seems to be just a god. Even the 1,000-man commander of our Free Castle, that 6-star fiend, wasn't able to sense even a hint of his true aura. Only now was Bakwil shocked. A 6-star fiend being unable to sense a hint of the true aura of someone, and with that someone having such a powerful soul. At very least, a peak 6-star fiend, and possibly even a 7-star fiend. In addition, one specialized in the soul. Bakwil evaluated. Experts who specialized in the soul were dread-inducing, because the soul was the foundation of every single person. Experts who specialized in the soul were very hard to deal with. Where is he? Bakwil said hurriedly. Gone. Sequira shook his head. He shouldn't be someone from Malugo Island. He didn't know anything about the blood-colored Malugo insignia. I didn't dare to rashly attack him, so all I could do was watch him leave. Bakwil let out a long breath, then laughed. If he's gone, then forget it. Your actions were correct. When you encounter an expert like this, you can't rashly offend him. If he kills you, then that truly would be terrible. Sequiro laughed as well. Sequira. A voice of jubilation came out from the gates of the rear gardens. A mesmerizingly beautiful woman with a pure white complexion and jade hair came running in, her face covered in joy. This was Sequira's wife, Cecily. Father. Seeing Bakwil, that jade-haired beauty immediately curtsied. Bakwil nodded calmly. Lily. Sequira, seeing his wife, immediately smiled and walked over to welcome her. Lily, you seem so excited. Do you have some good news? Sequira laughed. Sequira, I'm with child. Cecily said hurriedly. Hearing this news, Sequira and Bakwil were both stunned, and then looks of wild joy appeared on their faces. The two looked at each other, with Bakwil laughing loudly in excitement. Ha ha, Sequira, you chose an excellent wife, ha ha. I have a child. I actually have a child. Sequeira was incomparably excited as well. Cecily, hearing this, was puzzled. It was just a child. Why was it that even the perpetually unflappable clan leader would be so excited? She had never seen the clan leader Bakwill be so excited before. Excellent. Bakwill was so excited that his face was red. He slapped his son on the shoulders. Sequeira, your wife has rendered great merits. Right. Sequeira nodded excitedly as well. And then, Sequeira rushed to his wife, embracing Cecily as he excitedly kissed her. Lily, you actually are with child, thank you, really, thank you so much. Sequeira said excitedly. Cecily, seeing her husband so affectionate and ardent, even with the clan leader nearby, felt both amazed and awkward. I have a child. Sequeira stretched his hand out, gently placing it on his wife's belly. Huh? Cecily stared, puzzled, at her husband. She saw Sequeira's right hand slowly emit a blood-colored glow which was extremely bizarre. Sequeira's face was full of excitement, but slowly, Sequeira's expression froze. He stared in astonishment at his nearby wife, Cecily. Cecily felt puzzled by the look in his eyes. Whap! With a sudden swing of the hand, he struck his wife heavily on the face, knocking her into the ground far away. Bastard, slut! Sequeira was so angry, his entire body was trembling. Cecily held a hand to her face, staring at her husband in disbelief. Sequeira, what are you doing? Bakwill was enraged. Father! Sequeira turned to look at his father, saying hurriedly, that isn't my child. Bakwill was stunned. Sequeira, are you saying? Sequeira nodded. Bakwill's face instantly sunk down, as though covered by a layer of frost. Bakwill glanced sideways at Cecily, then said in a voice that was like ice, Sequeira, this woman is no longer worthy of being your principal wife. You decide how to punish her. After a period of time, prepare to take another wife. Yes, father. Sequeira turned to stare furiously at Cecily. Cecily's face was filled with confusion. She immediately said hurriedly, Sequeira, this is your child, why do you say it is another's? Actually, not even a deity was able to tell if the fetus in his wife's body was or wasn't his own. But some people were exceptions. For example, Linley, because Linley belonged to the Dragon Blood Warrior clan. Any descendant of the Dragon Blood Warrior clan would definitely have the lineage of the Dragon Blood Warriors. Even if the amount was sparse, it would still definitely be there. If there was no Dragon Blood Warrior lineage in one's body, then one definitely didn't belong to the clan. Why? Sequeira was so furious, his facial muscles were twitching. The Bagshaw clan belonged to the Blood Rune Titan clan of the Infernal Realm. The descendants of the Blood Rune Titan clan all had the Blood Rune Titan lineage in their veins. Of course, there were varying degrees of density, and if the density reached a certain level, they would possess extremely great power. Just now, Sequeira had used some of their clan's special energy for sensing, only to discover the child in the belly of his wife actually didn't have any of his clan's lineage at all. Without even a hint of the lineage of his clan, it meant that this child was definitely not his own. Book 16, Starmist C, Chapter 21, I Want Him Dead. You played me for a fool. Sequeira stared at his wife, his eyes like death. The child in your belly is someone else's. Sequeira doted dearly on his wife. When he had gone to the free castle, it was for buying clothes for her, but who would have imagined that his wife actually had another man? And the child in her belly was that man's. The Blood Rune Titan clan was an extremely mighty clan within the Infernal Realm, and the power they controlled was astonishing as well. In Malugo Island, although on the surface, the 5 clans were in charge of things, in reality, the other 4 clans were simply subordinate clans to the Bagshaw clan. The Bagshaw clan was the Blood Rune Titan clan. This was a secret which very few people knew. At least, Cecily didn't know it. Otherwise, she wouldn't have run over so excitedly to tell her husband that she was with child. No, no. Cecily hurriedly shook her head. This woman doesn't even admit it. The nearby clan elder, Backwill, said furiously, "Son, this is a shame to our clan. If this woman refuses to admit it, then destroy her entire familial branch within the Gaylord clan." Cecily's body trembled. The Gaylord clan, one of the 5 clans, was extremely large, with very many family branches. Destroying one of the branches, to the true masters of the Malugo Island, the Bagshaw clan, would need nothing more than a single word. Speak. Sequeira stared coldly at his own wife as well. Sequeira cared deeply about his face, and he was always very proud of the fact that he was a member of the Blood Rune Titan clan. He himself was the son of the clan leader, and was definitely in the principal line of descent, of an extremely exalted status. He was very haughty. Now that his wife had another man's child in her belly, of course he was already going mad. His face was so ugly, it was turning purple. "Hurry, speak." Sequeira landed a kick on Cecily's body, who was struck viciously by that kick and sent smashing into a decorative boulder. "Otherwise, you and your lineage in your clan lineage will all die," Sequeira said in a frenzy. I'll talk," Cecily said hurriedly. She was about to go mad. Actually, she herself wasn't sure who the child in her womb belonged to, because previously, she had been dealing with 2 men at the same time. One was Sequeira, while the other was Caesar. She had slept with both men, and so she herself wasn't sure whose child it was. Originally, as Cecily viewed it, since even she couldn't be sure, she might as well say that it was Sequeira's. There was no way for him to tell anyhow. Unfortunately, she didn't know that the Bagshaw clan was the Blood Rune Titan clan. "Even I don't know for sure who the child belongs to." Cecily, seeing the rage on Sequeira's face, hurriedly added, "But I'm certain that it is either yours or Caesar's." "Caesar?" Sequeira was stunned, and then he raised his head to the skies, laughing wildly. Ha 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 ha. His laughter carried boundless insanity within it, and his body faintly began to glow with a bloody light. He, Sequeira, a favored son of the heavens, had never suffered such a humiliation before. Could there be anything more insulting than his woman having another man's child in her womb? "Caesar, I want him dead." Sequeira snarled viciously, his eyes glowing with a faint, bloody light, as though he were a man-eating wolf. At Tarasi's residence. Over the past few days, Linley had lived here very comfortable, each day watching Lomio's 10 battles at the arena. He also often chatted with his old friends. As for Aix, Bates, and the others, they had left Malugo Island long ago. Lomio really is powerful. Pushing the courtyard gates open, Linley and the others walked in while chatting amongst themselves. "That saber blow of his is all but undefeatable. It just chops the opponents in half. He is proficient in both material attacks and soul attacks." Tarasi sighed in praise as well. Olivier agreed, in particular, his speed is also astonishing. Lomio is simply too powerful. Each time, he wins with such ease. Up till now, nobody has been able to exchange a few blows with him. All of them were defeated with the first blow. Thinking back to the sight in the arena, Linley felt amazed as well. In the arena, Lomio was simply too arrogant. He held everyone in condescension, but he had the strength to do so. "Linley, you're back." Dylan laughed as he came down from upstairs, and Linley's group went to welcome him. "Dylan, where's Caesar?" "Caesar?" Dylan frowned, lowering his voice. "He's sleeping." "Sleeping?" Deities didn't need to sleep at all, and Caesar normally wouldn't sleep. However, ever since his relationship with Cecily had been destroyed, Caesar had become depressed and would often just lounge around lazily and sleep. Tarasi shook his head and sighed. Don't disturb him. Just let him rest. Just as Linley's group of people were gathered together and chatting, young Master Sequeira of the Bagshaw clan, a sinister look on his face, was leading 3 black armored experts out of his ancestral estate. These 3 black armored experts were true elites of the Bagshaw clan. This Caesar actually dares to live amongst the island guards. Sequeira became all the more enraged. Caesar had slept with his woman, and was now living on his clan's grounds. Let's go. Sequeira immediately flew into the heavens, moving at high speed straight for the island guards' residences. Those 3 black armored warriors quietly followed. Moments later, Sequeira arrived at the island guards' region. The patrolling guards immediately came to welcome him. Seeing the 4 of them, these guards couldn't help but be very shocked, especially upon noticing those 3 black armored warriors. Those silent black armored warriors were like 3 glaciers. Although they were silent, they gave others a feeling of being unable to breathe. Go. Hurry and summon a 1,000-man regiment. With a wave of his hand, Sequeira revealed his blood-colored Malugo insignia. Blood-colored Malugo insignia. The patrolling guards were shocked, and then immediately said while bowing respectfully, "Yes, milord." Although they were puzzled as to why a 1,000-man regiment was being summoned, anyone with a blood-colored Malugo insignia could easily summon and order about a 1,000-man regiment. Soon, a 1,000-man regiment was summoned. Young Master Sequeira. The commander of the 1,000-man regiment immediately recognized Sequeira. "What are you?" "No questions. Follow me," Sequeira ordered coldly. The 1,000-man commander was startled. He realized that today, Sequeira's expression seemed rather different. In the past, Sequeira would always be smiling and laughing, but today, Sequeira's face was simply too ugly to behold, and the aura his body was radiating was one of danger. Whoosh! Sequeira was the first to fly into the air, with the 3 black armored guards following. After them was the massive, dense cluster of 1,000 island guards. Number 306. Sequeira still remembered the address which his wife had given him, for where Caesar was living. Generally speaking, the addresses for the island guards had very large numbers, but 306 was an extremely small number. Generally speaking, only some rather special people could live there. For example, high gods who had won 100 battles. Tarasi's residence. Linley's group was seated together. "Tarasi, you truly aren't willing to leave with us?" Linley asked yet again. "Caesar has agreed to leave with us." In the end, Malugo Island wasn't the route for Tarasi and the others. However, the Indigo Prefecture was where the 4 Divine Beasts clan was located. Linley wanted to gather there with those people as well. Caesar was willing to leave, but O'Brien had to stay with Tarasi. Tarasi had given him a god-level spark, in exchange for his service. "No need. We don't want to leave this place." Tarasi laughed, then shook his head. Dylan shook his head as well. "We've lived here a long time, and we've grown to consider this place our home in the infernal realm. We don't want to leave." Linley could only laugh helplessly. "A few days after Lomio's battles conclude, we'll leave," Linley said. "Such a pity. I wanted to be together with the rest of you, but there's nothing for us. I have to go to the Indigo Prefecture." Linley wouldn't try and force them either. If they weren't willing, then forget it. "Sorry, Linley." Dylan apologized. "It's fine." Linley shook his head. Suddenly, Linley was startled. Raising his head, he saw a large number of island guards in mid-air. "Why are there so many island guards? What major event is happening?" Tarasi was surprised as well. But Linley noticed that the leader of this large group of guards was that arrogant young man with short red hair. "Sequeira. What's he doing here?" Linley was startled. Right at this moment, that large group of people descended. Sequeira led the 3 black armored warriors into the courtyard, while over 100 of the other island guards also landed there, with the rest hovering in the air. Boss Linley, Delia, Bibi, and Olivier all rose to their feet. They saw Sequeira as well. Are they here for us? Delia asked through divine sense. Linley stared at Sequeira, completely not understanding. Given what he had expected, Sequeira shouldn't be causing such a ruckus over that small matter. But Sequeira had clearly brought a large number of experts to surround them. Who are you? Tarasi stood up. Tarasi. The 1,000-man commander laughed calmly. This is young Master Sequeira of the Bagshaw clan. He has business. Bagshaw clan. Tarasi and Dylan couldn't help but be stunned. Sequeira just glanced at Linley. You are here as well. And then, Sequeira paid no further attention to Linley. He shouted angrily, where is Caesar? Have him roll out. His angry shout shook the entire courtyard. Caesar? He's here for Caesar. Linley began to frown. Sequeira wasn't here for Linley, but was here for Caesar, but for what? Could it be that it had something to do with that woman named Cecily? Young Master Sequeira, what are you looking for Caesar for? Tarasi asked. No questions. Just have him roll out. Sequeira stared around at the building, and then Sequeira let out a cold sneer, directly releasing his divine sense and almost immediately locating Caesar. He couldn't help but look towards the second floor of the little building. Who is looking for me? A lazy voice rang out, and Caesar walked out. Flying directly down from the second floor. You are Caesar. Sequeira stared at him. You are. Sequeira. Caesar's eyes immediately grew fierce, and became filled with rage. Seeing the look in his face, Sequeira began to laugh wildly. This loud laughter caused Linley and the others nearby to have a bad feeling. The suppressed rage which Sequeira had held in his heart was now bellowing forth, and Sequeira's eyes were faintly red. Deities lived for too long. It was very normal for a female deity to have had multiple relationships with different men. Sequeira wouldn't care too much. As long as his wife wasn't with any other men while they were together, that was enough. But what enraged him was, the child in the womb of his wife belonged to another man. Given Sequeira's temper, how could he possibly swallow this insult? Sequeira, why have you come looking for me? Caesar said coldly. Why? Sequeira raised his head to the skies and laughed loudly, his body beginning to brim with a bloody light, and then he stared at Caesar. Today, I'm going to kill you. The faces of Linley's group immediately changed. Sequeira stared at the surrounding people, then said loudly, Today, my Bagshaw clan is going to execute the Caesar. All of you others, leave. If you don't leave, then you are becoming enemies of our Bagshaw clan. The faces of O'Brien, Linley, and the others turned ashen. Caesar seemed very tranquil. He turned to look at Linley and Tarasi, then shook his head. Don't worry about me. Actually, recently, I myself have felt that my continued existence has no purpose. There's no need to offend them for my sake. How can this be acceptable? O'Brien stepped forward, staring at Caesar. Caesar, we came here from the Yulon continent together. Over so many years, have any of us ever abandoned each other? At worst, we'll die together. What is there to fear? O'Brien, resisting blindly is just death. Tarasi let out a low sigh, then walked off to one side. I won't interfere in this matter. Linley was startled. O'Brien, don't resist. Resisting means throwing your life away. There's no point. Dylan shook his head as well. He actually walked to one side as well. As for Dylan's two children, those two six-eyed golden N.I. lions, they stared with shock on their faces. Father. The two six-eyed golden N.I. lions stared at Dylan. Come over. Dylan snapped at them. The two siblings exchanged glances, but they had no choice but to follow their father. You, O'Brien didn't dare believe it. When they had come to the infernal realm, they had adventured together and treated each other's lives like their own. Everyone believed that none of them would ever abandon each other. However, how did things end up like this today? Excellent. Sequeira said coldly, and then looked towards Linley. As for you, sir. Me. Linley, Delia, Bibi, and Olivier all looked at each other. In their smiles, they knew what each other were thinking. Linley laughed. Taking 3 steps forward, he walked to the side of Caesar and O'Brien. In a calm voice, he said, I, too, am from the Yulon continent. None of us will abandon one of our own. I, too, am from the Yulon continent. Delia, Bibi, and Olivier walked forward as well, with Linley as their leader. Linley's face grew solemn, and his gaze flashed through this group of high gods. He understood. This time, we really are going to go all out. I cannot show any mercy or forbearance. Linley's heart was beginning to fill with a killing intent. At a critical time like this, if necessary, he would sacrifice a drop of sovereign's might and launch a slaughter that would turn the world upside down. Book 16, Starmist C, Chapter 22, All who bar my path shall die. Sequeira saw Linley step forward. His face changed slightly. He knew very well how powerful the person in front of him was. If Linley was to interfere, then a new variable would have entered this affair. Sequeira said coldly, Today, my Bagshaw clan is definitely going to kill Caesar. Can it be that you all want to die with him? But Linley's group didn't hesitate or retreat at all. Linley, O'Brien, Bibi. Caesar looked towards them, shaking his head slightly. Ha ha, O'Brien began to laugh loudly, then looked at Caesar. Caesar, we've lived so many years, and have seen countless things. Our life is important, but sometimes, there are some things which are more important than life. Today, either we shall all live together, or we shall all die together. Caesar trembled. He looked towards Linley's group. Linley's group smiled back at him. Sequeira. Linley turned to look at Sequeira. Linley could tell that Sequeira was currently slightly hesitant. As Linley saw it, it would be best if battle could be avoided. Linley thus said, Sequeira, what sort of enmity do you and Caesar have, exactly, that you must force him to his death? Everyone should take a step back. Anyone else who said these words would be as good as looking for death. But Linley saying these words was a different situation, because in Sequeira's heart, Linley was very possibly a 7-star fiend. What is it about? Sequeira was furious just thinking about this. You ask him. Sequeira pointed furiously at Caesar. Me. Caesar had no idea. Sequeira was so angry that his face was purple, but how could he so openly and publicly discuss this affair? Was he supposed to directly say that the child in his wife's womb was another person's? Once this got out, most likely he, Sequeira, would be a laughingstock for the rest of his life. Humph. Sequeira, seeing the look on Caesar's face, couldn't help but sneer. You are doing this because of Lily. Caesar laughed coldly. It must be for Lily's sake, as otherwise, how would you, the mighty young master of your clan, come here for me? Shut your mouth. Hearing Caesar call Cecily by her nickname Lily in such an intimate manner, Sequeira was all the more enraged. You aren't worthy of calling her by that. Ha ha, Caesar laughed wildly as he stared at Sequeira. I'm not worthy of calling her by that. It's true that Lily and I were once together, but so what? Ever since you married her, the two of us never met again. What, can it be that after getting married, you are going to kill all of the men who were previously lovers with your wife? Immediately, the many island guards in the air and in the courtyard all began to speak quietly amongst themselves. Deities had an unlimited lifespan. It was normal for people to have had many romantic relationships. If Sequeira were to truly say that he was going to kill a former lover of his wife, that would be going too far. So that's what this is about. Linley felt rather surprised as well. He had heard of the affairs of Caesar and that woman. That woman had met with Caesar one last time before her wedding, and then they had never met again. Linley empathized for Caesar. But who would have imagined that Sequeira would come to kill Caesar? Cut the crap. Sequeira was furious, and yet he couldn't even explain the real reason he was so angry. Explaining something so shameful, to him, was something worse than death. I'll ask you one last time. Are you really insisting in interfering? Sequeira stared death at Linley. He didn't even glance at Caesar. He held Caesar in utter contempt. As long as he were to attack, he could kill Caesar in the blink of an eye. The one he worried about was only Linley, who stood in front of him. Young Master Sequeira, why do you care so much about this god? The 1,000-man commander was puzzled. Even Tarasi and Dylan were confused about this. I am. Linley said calmly, even if it was just for the sake of the friendship we held, I cannot possibly just sit and watch. What's more, Caesar has saved my life before. Linley's expression was calm, but in truth, the energy in his body was boiling, prepared to explode into an attack at any point. Sequeira narrowed his eyes slightly, a cold look being revealed. Quick, go inform my father that someone who is apparently a 7-star fiend is getting tangled up in this matter. Sequeira immediately sent a mental message to one of the black-armored warriors. A hint of surprise appeared on the black-armored warrior's face, and then with a flash, he disappeared. Seeing this, Linley couldn't help but furrow his forehead. Ha ha, Sequeira suddenly began to laugh wildly. Kill! Sequeira suddenly howled. The surrounding guards were clearly prepared for this the entire time. In the instant Sequeira gave the order, all of the island guards immediately made their move. Clearly, Sequeira wanted to launch a sudden attack to catch Linley off guard and thus seize the opportunity to kill Caesar at once. However, as soon as Sequeira ordered that black-armored warrior off, Linley had been prepared. In the same instant that Sequeira let out that furious howl. Rumble! With Linley at the center, within 300 meters, a misty earthen light arose. This region was large enough to cover a large number of the island guards, including both Sequeira and their leader, the 1,000-man commander. Blackstone space. Powerful gravity. Some of the guards who had been flying up in the air, not too far away, were caught within the sphere as well, and all of them dropped at high speed. As for Sequeira, who had been on the ground to begin with, his body involuntarily hunched down for a moment before he then immediately straightened his waist. Not good. Sequeira's face changed dramatically, because he saw that Linley was charging towards him at high speed. To subdue bandits, first capture their king. Linley had made his plans long ago. It will be hard for anyone to flee from Mologo Island, but Sequeira is clearly an important figure. If we can capture him and use him as a hostage to threaten the others, the situation would be much better. In the same instant he created his Blackstone space, Linley charged straight for Sequeira. What terrifying gravity! Sequeira's face changed dramatically while at the same time he immediately retreated. Young Master! The two black-armored warriors by Sequeira's side, ignoring their own lives, immediately interposed themselves in front of Sequeira, forcibly blocking Linley's path to him. Die! Linley's gaze turned cold. Bang! Linley's clothes exploded violently. And he instantly dragon-formed. Azure golden draconic scales covered every part of Linley's body, and those dark golden eyes stared coldly at the people in front of him. That draconic tail, flashing with a metallic light, began to wave. Seeing this, those island guards, Sequeira, the 1,000-man commander, and the black-armored warriors all felt their hearts tremble. An ultimate expert. The island guards had all thought that Linley was just a god, but now they realized how terrifying Linley was. All of them immediately believed that Linley had been hiding his true strength, and that his true status was that of an extremely powerful expert. 4 Divine Beasts Clan. The 1,000-man commander was greatly shocked. He's of the 4 Divine Beasts clan. Sequeira, while rapidly retreating, was surprised as well. Kill! Sequeira shouted explosively once more. So what if he was of the 4 Divine Beasts clan? The current 4 Divine Beasts clan was not like how the 4 Divine Beast clans had been in the past. The former 4 Divine Beast clans, their Bagshaw clan might perhaps be frightened of, but these days, their Bagshaw clan didn't fear them at all. They were capable of controlling Maluto Island and keep it proudly erect in the Starmist Sea. The true power of the Bagshaw clan was such that not even Sequeira, the young master of the clan, knew more than just the tiniest bit. Linley, he, Tarasi, Dylan, Caesar, and O'Brien were all greatly shocked. Die! The dark golden eyes swept past those 2 black-armored warriors. A surge of spiritual energy centered around the black stone suddenly surged towards those 2 black-armored warriors. Instantly, a strange wind sound began to thoroughly penetrate their souls. The 2 black-armored warriors both hesitated slightly. Swish! A devilish violet light flashed. Clang! Those 2 black-armored warriors actually both drew their weapons, blocking Linley's sword. Although the soul-affecting power was great, these 2 black-armored warriors could be considered true elites of the Bagshaw clan. Both of them had the power of a 5-star fiend. Although they were affected by the wind sound, they didn't fall into a stupor, and were able to maintain their grip on a hint of wakefulness. Whap! The draconic tail viciously slammed upon the shoulder of a black-armored warrior. Crunch! Flesh and blood exploded out, and an arm and half the side of his body was split off. The black-armored warrior seemed to have been struck by a meteor, and was knocked far away. The black-armored warrior was greatly shocked. Fortunately, he had dodged quickly enough, as otherwise, Linley's draconic tail would have swept onto his head. The whipping strikes of Linley's draconic tail were simply too powerful. Whap! The other black-armored warrior was sent flying as well. Linley's gaze was focused on the frantically fleeing Sequeira. Although the above took time to describe, in truth, when Linley charged past the 2 black-armored warriors, he just struck out twice with his draconic tail, fast as lightning, and sent them flying. Sequeira had been so terrified by the previous scene that his face was greatly changed. The 2 black-armored warriors hadn't been able to stop Linley for even a moment. You want to flee? Linley laughed coldly. Instantly, the gravitational pull that had been towards the ground changed. As Linley's divine power flowed out and began to fluctuate, immediately, all living things within the Blackstone space sensed an astonishingly powerful gravitational force that was tugging them towards Linley. The sudden change in gravity caught all of the enemies off guard. How is this possible? Sequeira could sense that he was unable to overcome this gravity, and was actually being drawn backwards. How could he be moving backwards? Immediately, his body emanated a bloody light, allowing Sequeira to just barely resist the force. But still, he was completely unable to move forward. The backwards gravity was simply too strong. Young Master Sequeira. The 1,000-man commander, however, was able to resist the gravity. Block him! The 1,000-man commander shouted loudly. Even if 1,000 island guards died, it didn't matter, but Sequeira couldn't die. The Bagshaw clan had too few people. Every single member of the clan was precious, and what's more, Sequeira was of the primary line. All of the island warriors were unsteady right now, and because they were squeezed into too small a space, they were tightly clustered together. They didn't dare to wildly chop out with their weapons, because they might hurt their own people. Fleeing. Linley increased his speed. Sequeira couldn't be allowed to flee. Linley wasn't too far away, and so naturally, he almost instantly appeared next to Sequeira. Bang! A wave of powerful energy struck onto Sequeira, but Linley couldn't help but be astonished. That wave of energy had actually come from the nearby 1,000-man commander. Swoosh! Sequeira instantly was knocked far into the distance, outside of the effect of the gravitational field. After having left the gravitational field, Sequeira flew for another 1,000 meters before coming to a halt. He felt a sense of terror in his heart. This member of the 4 divine beast clans is simply too terrifying. That gravity was just, even I was unable to resist it. Fortunately, that last blow. Sequeira felt very grateful towards the 1,000-man commander. That last attack was very queer, it didn't possess much harmful power. It was just a very heavy blow which impacted him, constantly pushing him outwards at high speed. This surge of force, combined with Sequeira's own power, naturally shot him out rapidly. Kill, kill. Kill him for me. Sequeira immediately shouted explosively. Only 200 or so people were trapped in the gravitational space, while the 800 other island guards were flying high in the sky. They wanted to attack, but the people trapped in the gravitational space were too densely clustered, and most of them were their own people. They didn't dare to engage in group assaults. If they did, they would injure their own people. Terrible. As soon as Sequeira escaped, Linley's heart lurched. The situation just turned terrible. After Sequeira escaped, he definitely wouldn't be so careless as to fall into the gravitational space again. The plan of capturing Sequeira had failed. Now, only the second method is left to me. A slaughter was about to commence. At present, Caesar and O'Brien were watching in stunned shock. They had believed that Linley was just a god and had come to die by their sides. They had been certain that they were going to die, and had been prepared to fight to their deaths. But now, they discovered. They were wrong, ridiculously wrong. Those island guards and black armored warriors weren't even able to stand on their feet steady. Within that gravitational space. Those people, in front of Linley, were like a flock of sheep, while Linley was a savage wolf. The wolf entered the flock of sheep. Linley, he, Caesar and O'Brien were both rather stunned. The situation right now is very bad. Having not captured Sequeira, all we can do is slaughter a path out. To prevent them from engaging in group attacks, we have to battle within their groups. Only within their groups will we be able to avoid the group attacks of the other island guards. Linley's voice rang out in Caesar, O'Brien, Delia, Beebe, and Oliver's minds. Caesar and the others immediately focused their attention. Remember, follow me. After giving this instruction to those behind him, Linley let out a growl, then like an explosively enraged lion, led Caesar, Beebe, and the others to charge directly into the group of island guards in front of them. All who bar my path shall die. At this moment Linley's heart was as cold and hard as iron. He would no longer show any mercy. Book 16, Starmist C, Chapter 23, Turning the World Upside Down. Within the Bagshaw clan's estate. The only sound that could be heard was that of the gentle wind. Only, a large number of figures flew out from within the Bagshaw estate, moving at high speed towards the residential area for the island guards. It must be understood that those who lived at the Bagshaw clan estate, aside from the elites of the Bagshaw clan, were the true experts. In mid-air, his long red hair fluttered unrestrained. Backwill's face was emotionless as he flew at high speed. Behind him was 3 experts dressed in long red robes, 2 of them men, 1 a woman. The 3 red-robed experts were the true experts of the Bagshaw clan. In the Bagshaw clan, the number of red-robed elders was extremely low. They were, however, one of the main reasons why the Bagshaw clan was able to stand so tall in the infernal realm, to erect Malugo Island, and ignore the official powers. Every single red-robed elder was a 7-star fiend. The Bagshaw clan, in the entire infernal realm, was one of the ancient clans that was ranked within the top 10. The 4 Divine Beasts clan, before their fall, was of course far superior to the Bagshaw clan. But now that they had declined, they were a level weaker than the powerful, full-strength Bagshaw clan. Seems to be a 7-star fiend. Bakwill was full of worry. He was worried about his son. Whoosh! Bagwill flew at high speed, with 3 red-robed elders behind him, and 100 black-armored warriors behind the elders. Swish! A ray of blood-colored light spread out at high speed into the skies, from the residential area for the Maluto Islands guards. As it flew high into the skies, bang! It released a powerful explosive sound, while at the same time the blood-colored light expanded greatly, instantly seeming to become an eye-piercingly bright blood-colored sun. The faces of Bakwill and the 3 red-robed elders changed. This was the emergency call to arms for Maluto Island, ordering all of the warriors of Maluto Island to immediately enter battle mode as well as prepare to attack. Let's move ahead. Bakwill sent out his divine sense. Immediately, Bakwill and the 3 red-robed elders increased their speed dramatically, instantly throwing off the nearly 100 black-armored warriors behind them. The 4 7-star fiends transformed into 4 blurs, instantly moving into the distance. Bakwill, as soon as he saw the signal, was worried for his son. Indeed, the situation had turned extremely, terrifyingly grim, for Sequeira to have been forced to release the signal. Sequeira hovered in the air off into the distance, staring at the slaughter down below, his face ashen. Too terrifying. How could he be so strong? A slaughter. Linley, who had entered berserk mode and was using both his incomparably strong dragon form as well as the Blackstone space, had released a slaughtering power that caused the hearts of these men to turn cold. Kill. Linley's icy, dark golden eyes were filled without a hint of compassion. He led BB and the others to charge and slaughter into the residential area of the island warriors. Within this region, there were simply too many island guards. Most of them were spread into the various regions, and on the way over, there were quite a few groups of island guards. Linley intentionally charged towards the areas where the guards were the most plentiful. The Blackstone space had expanded to its limit as well, a diameter of 500 meters. Everyone within this region was affected by the gravitational pull. Within a diameter of 500 meters, each time he unleashed it, many island guards were caught within. When affected by the gravitational pull, they couldn't help but be dragged closer to Linley. Bang! Their bodies smashed through walls but continued to be pulled towards Linley. No. These island guards were terrified as well. They discovered that there were many island guards already within the gravitational field. But instantly, the direction of the gravity changed. Originally, the gravity was directed towards Linley, but suddenly, it became directed to the ground. The sudden change of the direction of the gravity caused those island guards who had been striving to resist the gravity to smash viciously against and fall downwards towards the ground. Kill. Some of the island guards who had suddenly been pulled into the gravity field were enraged. Kill. The many island guards who had been trapped into the gravity field attacked. But as soon as they attacked, Linley immediately activated the soul-bewildering effect. All of the island guards who had fallen into the gravitational field entered a stupor, but of course, amongst the island guards were a few experts as well who could just barely remain clear-headed. Against these very few experts, there was only one word. Kill. They were able to just barely remain clear-headed, but in the gravity field, how could they compare to Linley in speed? Bang! The devilish blood violet directly chopped an enemy's head apart. As for those other island guards who were in a stupor, Linley continued to control a small amount of gravitational power to drag them along with him at high speed as he fled. A violet sword light continued to flash unabated. An azure golden blur continued to flicker. Blood and flesh exploded, skulls shattered, and divine sparks flew everywhere wildly. Linley's earthen yellow light sphere continued to advance, like a strange, devouring beast that had swallowed the island guards directly into it. Those who didn't resist became stupefied puppets, while those who did resist were mercilessly slaughtered by Linley. This beast was continuously advancing. Bastard! Sequeira, watching this from mid-air, felt his entire body tremble. Linley, Caesar and O'Brien felt their hearts filled with astonishment as well. Haha, boss, this feels great. BB was very excited. All of them, despite being within the gravity field, were covered by a flowing earthen yellow light, and so they weren't affected at all. In addition, in the regions through the island guard's residential area, more and more island guards had flown into the air, coming in non-stop after having seen the summoning signal in the skies. Not only were there many island guards on the ground, there were many island guards in the skies as well. In the skies, the island guards were like a swarm of locusts. More than 10,000 island guards were hovering high in the sky. Staring down at that earthen yellow sphere of light that was constantly advancing, they too couldn't help but angrily curse. This bastard! As they saw it, Linley really was quite a bastard. Because within the Blackstone space, there was a group of stupefied island guards. These guards were like a wall of flesh. If these island guards in the skies were to attack en masse downwards, the first to be struck would definitely be these meat shield island guards. Linley was completely capable of controlling these stupefied island guards to use them to block any attacks, once they came. Can't let this continue. Sequeira gritted his teeth. He immediately spread out his divine sense towards those 10,000+ man commanders. Forget about those 100 island guards. Group attacks. Kill that man. The 1,000-man commanders were all shocked. Yes. They still acknowledged. Very soon, the 10,000 island guards in the skies all received the orders. Attack. The island guards were all rather surprised, but they still obeyed their orders. In accordance with the group orders, the 10,000 island guards in the skies all began to brandish their weapons, unleashing countless material attacks and physical attacks. Whoosh! 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 Instantly, countless multicolored attacks filled the skies, falling down from up above like a rain of rainbows. Only, each raindrop was a lethal one. Seeing this sight, Linley's heart clenched. They really are going to do this. Linley immediately turned, leading the group of people within his gravity field to dodge to the side. Fortunately, the countless island guards up above them were all afraid of being caught up by this Blackstone space, and so they all were rather high up, causing their attacks to have to fly quite a long distance. With such a long distance, even though they flew quickly, there was still enough time to react. Linley's group dodged. Bang! 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 The attacks descended from the skies. Countless rays of material attacks or soul attacks fell upon them without mercy. They fell down as tightly clustered as drops of rain. The 1,000-man commanders of the island guards clearly knew that Linley would dodge, and so their attacks were also aimed at the areas which Linley might possibly flee to. Although by doing so, it meant their attacks were not very focused, in the end, Linley wouldn't be able to dodge them all either. Within the gravity field, those many stupefied guards were controlled by Linley to block from above Caesar, BB, Delia, and the others. Linley himself also retreated backwards to stand closer to Delia. With so many meat shields, the soul attacks naturally struck them first, entering the seas of consciousness for those many stupefied island guards. The number of attacks that actually fell directly upon Linley's group came in clusters, with a single meat shield sometimes being able to block multiple soul attacks and quite a few material attacks. Quick, prepare the second wave of attacks. Sequeira immediately shouted. The 1,000-man commanders understood that the first wave of attacks was almost completely absorbed by the meat shield. Linley's group wouldn't actually be harmed much. But before they had a chance to give the orders, Linley moved up. Linley's group had just relied on the meat shields to avoid that last round of attacks, and as they did so, they immediately charged upwards. Their flying speed was of course extremely fast, and most of the island guards above them hadn't even had a chance to react before Linley flew within several hundred meters of them. Instantly, Dozens of island guards above Linley were drawn into that black stone space. Ah! Ah! They screamed miserably, but began to sink down at high speed. But their screams quickly quieted, because they themselves entered a stupor. The island guards began to panic. Flee! If they fell into the black stone space, that would be terrible. Linley's sudden upward charge into the middle of the island guards caused them to completely fall into disordered chaos. All of them were terrified of falling into the black stone space, and so they frantically tried to fly farther away from it. About time, Linley said to himself. Instantly, a large amount of earth elemental essence began to rise up. Crackle, the strange thing was, an enormous black cuboid appeared in mid-air. This black cuboid had 6 sides, and it hovered there in mid-air, 400 meters tall. This enormous black cube contained more than 100 high gods within it. This enormous cube was formed from countless miniature cubes that were only 4 meters tall. The precise number of the small cubes was 1,000,000. An enormous cube that was 400 meters tall, formed from 1,000,000 smaller cubes. Those high gods were all trapped within. This was the true form of the Blackstone prison, a cube. What is this? Many island guards were astonished. Swoosh! That enormous cube flew towards the east at high speed. Any island guards that were too slow or who weren't able to dodge, upon contact with the cube, were immediately devoured within. At the center of the enormous cube, Linley's group was gathered together. Now that these people have come in, it will be hard for them if they want to go out again. Linley laughed calmly. The gravitational force within the cube was under Linley's complete control. By relying on changing the direction of the gravity, Linley was capable of causing those within it to lose their sense of direction. In addition, each time they attempted to break through a wall, it would be tremendously difficult. It must be understood that this was formed from 1,000,000 cubes, and Linley was capable of soundless altering the insides of this cube. To escape was virtually impossible. The only possible way was to forcibly shatter it. Linley, what are we going to do? Delia asked. First, we'll fly to the eastern part of the island. Linley had planned this out in advance. By the time we arrive at the eastern part of the island, we will only have to cause a panic amongst the countless guests. The population in the eastern part of the island is very high. After causing them to panic, we'll be able to seize the opportunity to flee. This was Linley's second scheme. Linley, when did you become so powerful? The war god, O'Brien, looked at Linley. When we are all safe, I'll tell you. Linley replied. Bang! The outsides of the black cube were currently suffering countless attacks from the island guards. Although the island guards were numerous, their attacks were too spread out. At most, they would be able to destroy a few exterior layers, which Linley could instantly repair. I can block those material attacks, but as for the soul attacks, let those unfortunate meat shields block them. The Blackstone prison is so large that those outside have no way at all of knowing where we are within it. The countless island guards in mid-air were staying far, far away from that enormous black cube. The black cube thus flew across the skies of Maluto Island, moving at high speed towards the eastern part of the island. Slowly, it drew nearer and nearer to the eastern part of the island. What's that? The countless outsiders of Maluto Island raised their heads, staring at the enormous black cube. Suddenly, 4 blurs shot at high speed towards that black cube, while at the same time, a dazzling, enormous black saber light flashed, slashing directly across the black cube. Although it seemed to cut through it with difficulty, in the end, it still chopped through the center of the black cube. Bang! The black cube crumbled. The dragon-formed Linley, with Delia, BB, and the others, hovered there in mid-air. You won't be able to flee. A cold voice rang out. The speaker was Backwill, who along with the 3 red-robed elders were staring coldly at Linley. Linley stared at his surroundings. Currently, The area around them was surrounded by dense clusters of island guards who had already formed a sphere around them, completely sealing them off. From afar, the countless outsiders at the eastern part of the island were raising their heads to stare at this place. Those four are very powerful. Linley felt a hint of tension. That blade just now had been launched by one of the red-robed men, but the red-robed men were clearly under the command of that red-haired man. Linley had no confidence at all in his ability to fight those four head-on. It seems, I'll have to use Plan 3. Linley's gaze slowly turned ice-cold. Plan 3 was the final plan. It was time to use the Sovereign's Might. Book 16, Starmist C, Chapter 24, Life and Death, Two Paths. Currently at Malugo Island, at the air above the border between the western and the eastern part of the island, tens of thousands of High God Island warriors were in a sphere, surrounding Linley and his group who were in the center with no place to flee. The greatest threat to Linley, however, was the four people he was facing. 4 7-star fiends. A single saber blow that chopped my Blackstone prison cube in half, with enough remaining force that I had to disperse it with my fist. The power of that saber blow was really quite frightening. Linley felt that his right fist was slightly numb. Lowering his head, he saw that on his fist, there was a white imprint. Linley was quite astonished. This was the remaining power from that flash of saber light, after it had chopped through so many walls of the Blackstone prison. If the saber had landed with full power on Linley, it would be hard to say if his draconic scales would be able to resist it. 7-star fiend. Definitely a 7-star fiend. Linley stared at the red-robed man who had launched that saber blow just now. He was a muscular, red-robed man with wild, tousled golden hair like the mane on a lion. At present, this man was currently standing respectfully behind the red-haired man. And who is this red-haired man? Linley was cautious. The three red-robed elders were by the side of the red-haired man, while young Master Sequeira was currently by the side of the red-haired man, appearing quite respectful. However, the red-haired man glanced at him, and Sequeira lowered his head, respectfully stepping to the side. Even Sequeira is so respectful, and he seems quite similar in features to Sequeira. Could this be Sequeira's father? Linley, seeing this scene, guessed to himself. After a short consideration, Linley came to the conclusion that the situation was grim. The three red-robed men were very likely 7-star fiends. As for the red-haired man, he couldn't be weak either. Using Sovereign's Might is one possibility, but more importantly, I have to protect Delia and the others. Linley was still rather worried. After all, their group was surrounded by a dense cluster of tens of thousands of High God Island warriors. This group of High God warriors were extremely dangerous as well. It seems, I have no other options. Linley gritted his teeth. He had to block the opponents while at the same time, he had protect Delia and the others. But the enemy consisted of 4 7-star fiends. Even if he used his Sovereign's Might, he had to go all out. Thus, in the worst-case scenario, he had to simultaneously use 2 drops of Sovereign's Might. 1 drop for his original body to deal with the 4 7-star fiends. 1 drop for his divine clone to protect Delia and the others. That's the worst-case scenario. Linley was rather unwilling to do so. After all, this was 2 drops of Sovereign's Might. But the enemy was too powerful. I hope you won't force me to that step. Linley said quietly to himself. Currently, as Linley was weighing his opponents, they were weighing Linley as well. They discovered, to their astonishment, that they, 4 7-star fiends, weren't able to see through Linley at all. This person is extremely powerful. The clan leader of the Bagshaw clan, Bakwil, felt astonished. At the same time, he gave his son a hard look. If it wasn't because of his son, how could they have possibly offended an enemy like this? Boslo Boesiluo. Bakwil shouted. "Milord." The lion-like man went forward. "Go test him." If you can, then kill him. Bakwill ordered through divine sense. Bakwill knew very well exactly how powerful the three red-robed elders accompanying him were. In terms of defense, Boslo was the strongest. Thus, he was the most appropriate choice for testing the opponent's strength. Yes, milord. Boslo seemed rather excited. Boslo immediately turned his head, his yellow-golden eyes locking onto Linley. Cracking his lips, he laughed loudly. Ha ha, just now, you were able to take on my blow. That means you are worthy of knowing my name. I am Boslo. Now, if you die, you won't die without even knowing who killed you. Linley just stood there coldly in mid-air. His body suddenly moved, and his divine wind clone flew out, landing next to Delia, Bibi, and Oliver's sides. Delia was filled with concern as well, while Bibi said through divine sense, "Boss. Are you going to use the Sovereign's might?" "Right. My wind-style divine clone will also carry a drop of Sovereign's might. At a time of danger, I'll immediately use it." Linley sent mentally. 2 drops of Sovereign's might. One was held by the original body within the coiling dragon ring, while the other had been shifted into Linley's divine wind clone's interspatial ring. If the situation suddenly changed, Linley would immediately use his Sovereign's might. "Haha, I haven't even killed you, but you are already so frightened that you sent out your divine clone." Boslo laughed loudly. The laughter echoed like thunder in the air above Maluto Island. "Enough bullshit." The cold voice burst forth from Linley's lips. Boslo was slightly startled, and then his face grew solemn as well. With a flip of his hand, he retrieved a pitch-black long blade that was 2 meters long. Immediately, the tens of thousands of surrounding high gods and the countless deity spectators on the ground all went silent, expectantly waiting for this astonishing battle to begin. I didn't expect that this sort of battle would occur at Maluto Island. A black-haired man carrying a warblade on his back appeared within the ground. Raising his head, he stared at the battle. This was Lomio Bornazen, whose fame had become widespread throughout Maluto Island. Lomio narrowed his eyes, staring at the 2 men who were about to battle as closely as a viper. The battle that was being watched by countless people was about to begin. Rumble, that explosive red-robed man, Boslo, wielded his long blade. His speed reached the limit, and because he was too fast, the world itself began to rumble and thunder. In an instant, Boslo appeared high in the air. And then, Boslo's form tightened. Silently, soundlessly, Boslo charged down from up above with his long blade, chopping down viciously towards Linley. But the strange thing was, this blade actually didn't make any sound at all, and it didn't cause any spatial vibrations at all. It looked as though it was a very ordinary blade blow. Watching from below, Lomio's eyes suddenly lit up. To have trained to such a level in the way of destruction, Maluto Island really is a place of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. But Lomio discovered that Linley still just stood there, not seeming to care at all. Lomio was surprised. Even he, in the face of that saber blow, wouldn't dare to be so casual. Formidable. A sigh of praise escaped Linley's lips, but right afterwards, as Boslo slashed down in a perfect arc, while he was still 200 meters or so away from Linley, his body suddenly, bizarrely quivered, then was pushed back by several meters. Instantly, the stance of his downwards chopping blow was broken. What sort of power is this? Boslo was astonished. Just now, he clearly could sense a terrifying repulsive power acting on his body. Even at his level of power, when caught off guard, he couldn't help but retreat. Even Bakwill and the others, watching at a distance, were astonished. "Father, that man's gravitational space is very bizarre. Not only can it pull downwards, it can also draw inwards or repulse outwards." Sequeira immediately explained to his father through divine sense. Bakwill couldn't help but stare at Linley in amazement. A gravitational space that can reach such a level. He didn't dare believe it. Ha ha, Boslow let out a loud, gravelly laugh, which sounded like the bursting waters of a flood. His flashing golden eyes stared at Linley. I underestimated you. Boslow wielded his saber with both hands, forcibly resisting the repulsive force as he charged towards Linley. Linley just stood there quietly. Die! Boslow swung down violently with full force. Wherever his warblade passed by, space itself was chopped open by the sharp blade, with a large crack easily being created. That enormous long blade came straight down towards Linley's head. Before the long blade arrived, the spatial tremors that it had caused had reached Linley. This is the moment. Linley's eyes suddenly widened viciously. The repulsive force immediately transformed into a downwards gravitational force. Boslow felt that he instantly seemed to have had a 1,000,000,000-kilogram mountain crushed down on his body. This sudden gravitational pull caused all of his movements to change. When experts exchanged blows, a sudden change like this had a tremendous impact. Boslow, caught completely off-guarded, suddenly sank down. Boslow had been chopping down at Linley, but he was now below Linley. How could he possibly hit Linley? Humph! A cold voice rang out. An azure golden light flashed. Linley's right leg struck out like a blade towards Boslow's head, with his dragon-formed body containing such boundless physical strength that this kick actually caused space to crack and rumble. Boslow was an expert as well. He immediately changed his downward swing to an upwards block, and wherever the blade of his saber passed, space was parted like the waters of the sea. Bang! Linley's right leg slammed viciously onto the blade, but the weird thing was, the power of the blow actually passed through the warblade and into Boslow's body. Boslow's entire body twitched momentarily, and at almost the same moment, Linley's draconic tail also lashed viciously against Boslow's body. Boslow had been impacted by the gravitational space to begin with and was being impacted by an astonishing downwards gravitational force. Now that he had been successively hit by Linley's kick and also struck by Linley's vicious tail. Bang! The earth trembled as Boslow smashed directly into the surface of the other, an enormous, deep crevice appearing on the ground. The tens of thousands of island warriors and the countless spectators on Malugo Island were all stunned. He actually had dared to use his leg to kick down towards Boslow's warblade. And had even knocked Boslow into the ground. How hard is his leg? This was what countless people were wondering. Swoosh! Boslow emerged from the ground and flew out at high speed, his face filled with disbelief. At this moment, a voice rang out in his mind. Boslow, what is going on? Milord, his strength is too powerful. I've never encountered a person whose strength was so great. Boslow sent back. His physical strength was indeed vast. Just now, when Linley's leg had smashed against Boslow's warblade, Boslow had felt as though an enormous mountain that had existed for 10 million years had slammed onto his body. The strength of this power was indescribable. Milord, just now, my attack, he wasn't injured? Boslow asked. As he was smashed into the ground, he hadn't had a chance to notice. You only broke a few of his draconic scales. You didn't injure him much. Backwil said. My blade attack contained a soul attack as well. He didn't feel anything. Boslow asked hurriedly. Although he was more proficient in material attacks, his soul attacks weren't weak either. Anyone who didn't have a soul-protecting divine artifact would find it hard to resist. His soul defense has to be excellent. I haven't noticed any change in him. Backwil was beginning to worry. The mysterious expert of the four divine beasts clan in front of him seemed to be rather too powerful. How dangerous! Fortunately, my soul-protecting sovereign artifact ablated 90% of the attack power. Linley was frightened as well. Just now, although the material attack component of that blade chop was powerful, it was only able to shatter his draconic scales and give him a flesh wound. But the soul attack embodied within the blade had struck like a thunderbolt against that translucent membrane. Upon smashing into the soul-protecting sovereign artifact, of course it shattered. After the first blow, 60%, 70% of the power was dispersed, and then the remaining force spread throughout the translucent membrane and discovered the flaw in the membrane. The bandage over the flaw was now quite strong, and an enormous amount of force was needed to break through it. The remaining bit of energy, Linley was able to resist with his own soul power. This person is still more proficient in physical attacks. If I were to encounter someone who was an expert in soul attacks, Linley, just now, had already gripped the drop of Sovereign's might into his hand, prepared to use it at any moment. Bakwill and the three red-robed elders were all hesitating. This Linley was truly unfathomable to them. Even a 7-star fiend like Boslo seemed to be at a disadvantage. But what they didn't know was that even a 6-star fiend, if proficient in soul attacks, would be enough to deal with Linley. Unfortunately, they didn't know any details regarding Linley. After all, they all believed that Linley was hiding his aura. His ability at hiding his soul aura is at such a level, how could his soul attacks possibly be weak? Bakwill and the others all came to this conclusion, which is why they had sent Boslo, who had the strongest material attacks in their group. "Father," Sequeira said softly. "F***ck off. Go to one side." Bakwill growled. Bakwill was frustrated, but Linley was also frustrated. Linley knew his own power. His body was very tough and so he could frighten the opponents, but if they were to truly battle, he would absolutely have to use up his sovereign's might. Linley immediately flew over towards Bakwill. "What are you doing?" Bakwill immediately used his divine sense to shout. Bakwill and the three red-robed elders all grew guarded, staring at Linley. It was as though if he said a single word wrong, they would immediately attack. That Lord Linley is flying over. Can it be that he wants to fight them, 1-on-4? The countless spectators on Malolo Island who were watching with their heads raised were all staring at this sight, and Lomeo was watching quietly as well. Linley continued to fly. Roughly at a distance of 300 meters from Bakwill, Linley came to a halt. Seeing Linley halt, Bakwill and the others calmed down slightly as well. "How could I be here to cause you trouble? You just don't know, that at a long distance, my divine sense isn't long enough to reach you." Linley didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. He was only a god. Generally speaking, the divine sense of a god was only 100 meters. Although he had refined a large number of amethysts and his soul had grown to the limits of power for a god and was unable to absorb any more, his divine sense was still limited to 300 or 400 meters or so. High gods, however, could generally speak with divine sense to 1,000 meters. Only by drawing closer was he able to speak with divine sense. "I am Linley." Linley sent through divine sense to Bakwill. "Bakwill." Bakwill responded. "Linley, your friends are all surrounded. As long as I give the order, tens of thousands of high gods will join forces and attack. Your friends will all die. Given your power, you should know the true power of our Bagshaw clan. If we really start to claw at each other's faces and go all out, even if you are an Azura, our Bagshaw clan will still be able to kill you." The experts of the Bagshaw clan were more numerous than just the few of them present. "I understand. My power has only been partially revealed as well." Linley sent back through divine sense, while at the same time, Linley stretched out his right hand. In his right hand, a sparkling blue drop of water appeared. This blue drop of water was giving off a faint yet awe-inspiring aura of power. The faces of Bakwill and the three red-robed elders immediately changed greatly. Water-type sovereign's might. I don't want for us to rip at each other's faces and go all out. You should know that given my power, if I use this drop of sovereign's might, what the results will be. Linley sent through divine sense. Bakwill's facial muscles twitched, and then he laughed coldly. Bakwill flipped his own hand, and a drop of black liquid appeared. Linley could sense the terrifying energy contained within that black drop of liquid. It was a power on the same level of his blue drop of water, only what it emanated was the aura of destruction. Destruction-type sovereign's might. Linley was shocked as well. Your 4 Divine Beasts clan has sovereign's might. Did you think my Bagshaw clan doesn't? Bagshaw sent through divine sense. For you to have a drop of water-type sovereign's might means that your position in the 4 Divine Beasts clan must be quite high. It was normal for Bakwil, as the leader of the clan, to be carrying a drop of sovereign's might. The top 10 ancient clans of the infernal realm, such as the Bagshaw clan, all possessed astonishing power of their own. You killed so many of my men. Although they were minor figures, you still besmirched the face of my Bagshaw clan. I'll give you 2 paths to choose from. The first path is the path where we go all out against each other and engage in a great battle. At worst, my Bagshaw clan will lose a number of experts, but we will still kill you. I wager your 4 Divine Beasts clan won't dare to come to my Maloto Island to avenge you. Bakwil was absolutely confident. Linley's face didn't change. He continued to listen. The second path is, my Bagshaw clan can give you face and forget about those minor figures you killed. However, you must serve my Bagshaw clan and assume the position of a red-robed elder. You must serve the Bagshaw clan without compensation for 10,000 years as a form of apology. In this way, this matter will be at an end. Pick a path. Bakwil stared at Linley.